Oh, that is.
That's Bob. There we go.
Shall we till Bob arrives?
Oh, it's
Go.
yeah.
Call to order the Blue River Planning and Zoning meeting for August 4th.
Beck. Carlstead.
Here.
Cleary. Johnson.
Here.
Mammon. Here. O'Brien. Here.
Approval for the minutes from the July 7th meeting, please.
We'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 7th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. First on the docket is 1253 Indiana Creek, new construction.
Maybe operating on a different one here. It should be 6871 Highway 9. It may have been flipped. Not sure how the agenda works right now. Yeah, this looks slightly different. 6871 Highway 9 addition. Where is it?
This one isn't showing it.
Okay, it may not be on the agenda, but the documents exist for the.
Yeah.
The docs are there.
Yeah, that's on my bad.
Okay.
Would someone be willing to make a motion to include that on the new project for approval? This is 6871 Highway 9, and the project is classified as addition.
So we need to make a motion.
Just to make sure it's on the
Oh.
agenda. Well, yeah.
I make a motion to that it is on there. I'm looking at it.
Oh, okay. well, okay.
And you just have to hit that agenda packet thing.
I did.
Yeah, and then it came up.
No, as I scroll down, I'm on it now.
Okay. Well.
Yeah, 6871 Highway 9.
Okay. I think we're good to go then.
Oh yeah, I apologize I wasn't here last month. We'll help you guys through this one. There were a few things that I called out on here. One was that the original application was showing siding replacement with board batten. And their new Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code shows that anything, if you touch more than 25% of the home with the siding replacement, you have to replace the entire home with a compliant product. And I did not have the calculations at the time, so I noted on your agenda packet that the siding material may have to change when it gets into building plan review was my intention. So I was just informing you that what you approve that day may change later on. So I was just trying to give you a little heads up there. The applicant did provide the calculations. It came back at like 29 or 23.9% or something. So they are just under the 25% rule. So they do not have to replace the entire home siding materials. So the materials that they are proposing can be approved through you guys here. I also noted that they have two driveways on the site plan, and it's also a CDOT road. So I wasn't totally sure how to handle that one, so I was just leaving that into your ballpark. I felt like you could have added a condition, but that may or may not be applicable on this project. And I wasn't 100% sure of what the issue with the survey was. I know the survey they provided wasn't totally clear, but they were showing distance compliance with the.
Well, it didn't show the easements. I think was one of the issues. There's a pedestrian easement
on the side of the property.
On the side, and that's required for any plan submittal that all those things are illustrated. That wasn't clearly illustrated.
So they did provide some new documents which should be in the new packet. Does that satisfy your requirements?
It was in there. I saw it earlier. The new topo.
On the south end of the property.
Yeah.
So on that property, they are showing 15-foot setback, which they're easily in compliance with. They're also not doing any work on that side of the building. They're only doing work on the front and rear.
Well, they added 2 window wells for egress, I believe, on that side of the building.
That was actually not included directly in this permit. That wasn't a previously approved or previously issued permit. But yes. Yeah, those window wells are indicated on sheet a little further down, right before the colored elevation. And they do include that pedestrian easement there you were talking about.
So our scope of this is not how many bedrooms they're adding and all that.
No, yeah, the scope for this permit is the new roof overhang, so the elevation change in the front, and a new deck and a partial overhang in the rear. So no, this permit does not include any interior renovation.
But that is permitted stuff, right?
Correct. That's a separate
But that's
permit on this project.
That's not planning and zoning.
Correct.
Because my understanding is everything else looked fine, the entry deck, what they were doing. It was just a matter of the percentages. And then we were questioning that driveway, and it was more or less because, I know in the past, we've made people eliminate an entry and driveway because you're not supposed to have two driveways, but then, it came up that unless they were doing a lot of work out front, that might be not.
I agree, that is questionable. I would also note that this is a highway of CDOT. So they may also have issues, but again, that's not our jurisdiction.
Has CDOT been notified? No. Because it was existing.
Correct.
Well, yeah, and I think that we're a little unclear if they were realigning existing driveway, parking spaces by the new front deck, snow storage, anything like that, that would potentially trigger, requiring them to abandon that second entrance if they were doing modifications to this.
And then it looks like
No
in the notes
modifications.
it's saying they're not.
Exactly. So then
That's
like
what I
it's
read.
existing non-conforming.
Yeah.
And then we don't really have any reason to require that. So
But if they were in the future to start messing with this driveway, parking spots and that would trigger definitely.
yeah, if they were to add parking spaces or rework the driveway, then it would require the driveway to come into compliance.
It might be worth a look at satellite photos of what the driveway looked like a couple of years ago
Right.
compared to what it looks like now.
Because I think that was noted in this permit that supposedly it was done in 2015. Realigned, because it definitely wasn't there. The GPS stuff I saw too, there was not a double driveway. So I don't know how that, we still can't, say, it's not up to us to say, I'm not looking at Bob, but I know you're looking at me, I'm just making sure these guys know what I'm talking to. That we can't really address this.
In the original statement that if they're not making any changes that would alter parking driveway, you can't really force them to come into compliance. However, if we have information, this is not your issue, we have information that in 15, it was required to have a permit to construct that driveway, and they didn't get it. It'd be an illegal driveway, and we can enforce and make it close off on that. So that would be a separate step. It's not your step tonight.
So could we suggest?
I think you just did.
According to looking at Google Maps, it's been around since at least 2008.
The double driveway?
Yeah, that's the earliest street view exists.
That you can see the picture in 08?
Yeah. It's pretty, it's a little more buffed out and defined now, but it is the same layout structure.
And if it's that old, it would be under your very old architectural guidelines rules, guys, those bad boys.
Right.
It would be under that regulation, and don't quote me on this, but I don't believe there was a prohibition of double entrance driveways.
Right. I remember that was one of our gray areas that everybody thought, you know, what we thought and what was real.
Yeah.
Quite a few instances.
And even if our regulations don't prohibit double driveways now, we have to comply with the CDOT access control plan, which forces us to minimize the number of entrances on Highway 9. So we would probably never permit a double driveway.
Right. I don't think there's too many, except for the ones that are really a full pull out, and that's all over driveway.
Any other questions or motion?
I'm fine with it, with what they proposed before that. Seems like they addressed our questions. You know,
Then we know the
I
percentages.
would lean towards, I would hope they would get rid of that driveway. It's not a requirement. It's not a condition. So I could make a motion to accept 9871.
6870.
What is it, 6871?
Yeah.
6871. As presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now moving on to 1253 Indiana Creek Road.
Hey, this one's a work session, so you guys have a little more flexibility of how you want to handle this. Would you like me to present? Do you want to just start looking over, or do you, I believe you are the applicant, is that
Yep,
right?
correct.
So it's up to you, Chairman.
The only question I guess I have is, I think it's a beautiful house. It's a lot of house. And it's almost like, you know, you guys are saying, not admitting, but trying to nip it in the bud that it looks like it's a duplex, but it definitely is not.
The owner has two daughters, twin daughters,
Right.
and so he wants to somewhat create separate spaces for them. They do a lot of entertaining. He does a lot of meetings for his company there. So they'd like the two kitchens to one for an entertaining kitchen, one for a working kitchen. You know, if we need to eliminate one, we will, but that's really there's no demising wall. Todd is the architect. And I think Kyle had a question on the building height that we needed to kind of clarify.
Right.
Yeah, that was my only, if you saw my thing here, there's only one no, which was building height. So as you guys know, in Blue River, we do, the building height must be 35 feet from either existing grade or proposed grade. In the architectural drawings, they showed the existing grade, which they clearly meet, but there's significant cut into that. So there's several areas that sure appear to me that they exceed 35 feet. I couldn't quite be 100% confident, but I did not get enough of an elevation to be fully confident that you don't exceed 35 feet at any location.
Well, I was looking at it from,
I do have a drawing that reflects the height, and
That would certainly be good to at least get through this meeting. I don't know if they can take action on this item today, but we could at least get down their opinion of how to measure height.
yeah, and I think the way it's calculated, the building height itself, so that's sort of the exercise here of, I don't know how to present these plans.
I mean, I looked at it, you know, just what I could see on the plan submitted. And, you know, so measuring in the vertical plane from the lowest exposed points, well, 40 feet. So well over, which, you know, on the north and south side, you have recessed garage entrances. You know, it's, I mean, you know, it's just, how are we gonna, interpret our language in the river.
I think the language is sort of,
It's in 16B, it's not a definition, it's actually 16B40, if I recall correctly.
I have here. This is a section through the house. And this top section is the way that the building height for Blue River is calculated, essentially going up. This is existing grade coming through right here. The dash line is coming through here. This is 35 feet up from existing grade. So everything's under the 35-foot calculations from existing grade. And the issue is once you get into the structure, which is basically fully buried below grade, they're saying that the finished grade elevation is now down here and calculating up to here, which gets me into the 46 feet.
But where's the front, like with your garage doors, like your.
This is the section through the house right here. This is-
Right, but where would be your tallest exposed wall? I guess that's all under.
This is all buried underneath. So essentially my garage is here. And then it goes all the way through to this end down here. There's an overhead door that comes through. So the way your code reads about basements and building heights, basements don't count in the finished grade calculations. So that's why this would basically go here, stop down, come across, back up and then through. So my building height would theoretically step in the middle of the house, down, back up again in that direction.
But not really if that's all exposed on that one end. Your grade, you've created your grade. You're saying that that's basement, but that's not basement. If you're driving into the garage, that whole section now
Is exposed.
is exposed.
Yeah,
You're not buried, you're not subterranean. That's all wall height from not a flat wall, but all the way up.
Well,
You know, so your highest point of the
this,
building from your lowest grade.
that's
I'm
a,
not calculating the height from the cross-section view architecturally, I'm looking at it from the exterior,
okay,
where the
because
grade is. So do you have an elevation view of the size where the
Yeah.
floor side is?
So just while we're pulling that out, so 16D 520 is building height. So building height measurement, heights of all buildings and structures are determined or calculated as follows. Building height shall be measured using the certified topographic map that also illustrates the entire proposed building footprint. Building height shall be the distance measured vertically by straight line from any point at the lowest in elevation of either natural grade or the finished grade
Right.
to the highest point of the building at such point, not including any exceptions or physical improvements to the height limitation provided by this section. So then then it continues on, so that's just, so
Probably pretty grateful for that. Yeah.
where minor or nominal irregularities in the grade exist, such irregularities shall not be used in determining compliance with height limitation and the surrounding typical grade of the natural grade or finished grade shall be used. And then here's the exception there, talking about window wells, walkout doorways, cellar or basement entry points, and similar building appurtenances shall be or installed below the general grade of the site shall not be included as an element of the finished grade for the purposes of calculating building height. So that's where it's like, that's the section that's kind of open to.
So there it is. So that's your grade right there, right there,
that's my finished, the garage.
all the way to the top.
Yeah, all the way to here.
No, all the way to the roof.
No, because that's actually further back. It's not the same one, plane. It's part of the structure.
Right.
Well, the thing is, when you got to measure vertically from this point straight up. So basically you would measure from the guardrails down to finished grade.
So the.
Since this is in the middle of the house, you would
retaining
take,
wall, so it's, I mean, I guess there's a retaining wall around the driveway going to the both garage doors, correct?
yeah, there's retaining wall associated.
So that's.
Oh, so you're saying that garage is almost subterranean? It goes way back in there to the house.
Yeah, I got, yeah,
Yeah, so there's. the
Okay, that
retaining
was what it
walls
was.
I got a model of it.
Holding, you know, so like the.
I bet you, it's a beautiful house.
No, it-
There's no doubt about it.
It's just the way height's calculated, because when you take every point, you take it from each point down. This gable is further back from that deck, so theoretically, you would measure from this point to really the guardrail, because that would be a permit item.
Cause then that goes back
And then it
and
goes
then
back
the
up.
house over
And
there.
this one
So
would be,
what's your furthest, like, if you're standing back at this house, your highest, like, what is even this in between the garages all the way up to
that's this section right
That's
here.
there.
That's all under on building height.
the middle of the house?
Yes, and the only section that's, the porte cochere is driving the building heights in this house. It's this roof at the porte cochere, which is this elevation here. It's this roof right here down to existing grade. And that's what's
So
going,
that's all the portico.
Yeah, so-
all those windows.
all these are just, steel frames.
Right.
They're not windows. So this porte cochere is out in front of the house.
Wow.
So right now, the building height, right now, like I say, it's right here is my 35 feet, is this point right there. That's my house. That's what's driving my house elevation, is the porte cochere, which is not living space.
But then why does it look like it's another 5 feet behind it?
Well, it
Because
depends.
of the around the other side is the different elevation.
Oh, yeah, because in the back, it's, I mean, we're in a hole. So, so natural grade drives the building elevation in this house, no finished grades.
I mean, it doesn't look overbearing like huge height because it's so stretched out.
Because really, the only thing you do see, let me grab this, is
Is the driveway go to the park share, is that below, that is below existing grade?
Is the porte cochere driveway?
this is a view from the road. That's what you're gonna see. Is you're gonna see the porte cochere. That's further down, and this.
Looks high though. I mean, sorry to say, but it does look, even from here to here, it doesn't look like 35 feet.
This is under, that point's under 35 feet. Like I say, I had every point, it's porte cochere this driving.
From this view, you need to draw on taller trees.
I need to draw in more trees because you're probably not gonna see it. It's a forest up there.
No, I mean, it's a beautiful home.
And the trees are big.
So to clarify my point is we're not using the basement level at all.
Okay,
I'm
that's,
looking at it from an exterior perspective.
okay,
And we have a slope, so forget about the slope. We look at the existing grade, that's a plane,
Mm.
and it looks like you've removed about 5 to 10 feet of existing grade to build this house. That's what, from the elevations, that's what it looks like. From where the existing grade line was to where the new grade line would be from elevation, it looks like about 5 foot difference.
Okay.
So if you could just show me a plane of where proposed grade or existing grade is, which you've done,
Yeah.
and then proposed grade from the exterior.
okay,
And show me those two lines and show me that you're 35 feet from the worst one of those,
okay.
which is the proposed.
Or is that the
So
same?
I'm not taking the elevation of your basement concrete slab.
Okay, because
We're,
that's
we're looking at from the exterior perspective.
good. That's what I was hoping, because I said, because I don't have anything over 40 feet. And I'm going, the only way you're gonna get that is if you
Yeah,
go
I was
internally,
scaling-
and then I'm going,
Yeah, I was literally scaling your drawings from the elevation views you showed me, to like where the garage door is, where it's sunk in. Because I wasn't totally sure it meets that exception. So I guess that you guys could clarify, does the garage sunken entries, do they meet the window well exception? Not necessarily window well, could you read those exceptions again?
basement entrance, I guess would be the verbiage that.
So would you
Right.
guys like to define,
So here-
does their entryway to the garage meet the basement entryway except?
So I guess what I'm looking at the, let's see, this is, let me see,
Did you measure this quarter scale or 3/16?
Whatever you have on the drawing.
so I'm just looking at.
Because,
So
I know it's like 38, 40, 39 feet, so.
okay, because it is 3/16 was a,
Yeah, I wasn't crazy numbers, I was only a
Okay,
couple feet over.
No, he's saying this.
I'm just looking at the new site grading plan on page 45. So there we can just, ignore what they're referencing for building. And if we look at shows highest USGS elevation at 10,237.8. And then that was my question as far as the driveway going for a share. That looks that finished grade is getting labeled at 10,204. So if I subtract 10,204 from the USGS highest ridge, that leaves us with, so that shows 33 feet.
Is that where you were getting yours?
I'm 34 at that one point on that Porpoise share, and like I said, and wherever that point is, that's my finished floor
So
elevation.
that's,
And
that's
everything else is
referencing
under that, so.
I thought I'd seen that there's a missing one of the roof elevations. That's the highest point. Is that center ridge is the highest point of the.
Yeah, Center Ridge is the highest point of the
Yes,
house,
that's-
yes, and that fireplace that's in the front is coming up into that 35 feet,
Yeah.
which Doug was talking about here, because I could bring mechanical up higher
Yeah.
than the 35 feet.
Yeah.
So that's what you were talking about when you were saying, look.
Well, I was kind of really looking at just below that, because that whole thing though, I was looking at from the
Yeah.
ground all the way up at not including the chimney cap. I
Gotcha.
was figuring out was roof structure at the very top.
Yeah.
And then I was just curious where that came in at, because it doesn't, that looks to me like under 35, when we were looking at where those garage and the other all the way down, like, yeah, that's where I from there.
Because this is a deck and like.
Right, now I
this
see.
is pushed back.
Now I do it.
That's where I-
making the drawings.
Yeah, that's why I think section like that here, this is. This is that. You're talking about.
Right,
And
That's
that's
where I was struggling there about the vertical.
because you were going like I was.
I was
all the
going
way.
to that
all the way to this
from
point.
the garage doors, and I'm like, you're at 39.
no, because that's not on the same plane as this, it's back
Yeah.
further, so as a
Right.
result, this doesn't count because this is within the footprint, which doesn't really say in your code about that, but anyway, so in this case, for the
I would
garage
take
doors.
like an average plane.
Huh?
I would take like an average plane from corner to corner of the building.
That's fine,
Which, and that's where, when you look at this, like, front to back, the front is high, the back is high, it's your north, south, or your sides, which, then that just gets into the interpretation of basement entrance.
Okay, so again, back to that. Are you guys willing to say that garage dip is a basement entrance?
I am.
So yeah, and then, the wording is window wells, walkout doorways, cellar, or basement entry points, and similar, building, pertinence, whatever.
what are
Can't
those?
say that. Appurtenances, installed below, so there'd be a question, maybe Bob can pronounce that word. Pertinence. There's another E in there that's missing some pertinence. Installed below the ground level. They're installed below the general gauge shall not,
It's,
the site shall not be included as an element of finished grade. So that's the whole question. Are we based on entry point? It doesn't specifically say garage door, but like
it's an entry.
it's an entrance. You know, the having the driveway, it's a little different than, you know, having a basement door, and then like the grade is immediately up higher, but that's the intent. You know, not entirely indifferent in this circumstance, but it's open to interpretation for sure.
Are you okay with it? It looks a lot like your house.
Yeah, and I guess intent too. The intent of the rule. I think the house needs
Yeah.
the intent.
I think so.
Okay, so we're close on grade. Just throw me in a proposed grade and then the existing grade.
Yeah, and I'll
As
give you
linear,
elevations for both,
like
yeah.
average lines.
Yeah.
And then if you could just show you're less than 35 feet from both lines,
Okay.
I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
Not from the basement slab.
Gotcha. And that's where I was confused, because I'm going finished grade, because from an inspector standpoint, it does go internally.
Yeah, it's vertical at every point.
Every point, but
Yeah.
internally it does too, because
Right.
that's when you start
But I take
establishing
it from an
stories.
exterior perspective
Yeah.
as an average grade.
Okay, so you're looking at it from a planning aspect, which is finished grades and proposed grades. So
You wrote it. So
just
you agree. Okay,
yeah.
good. Okay, so we're much better than I thought we were. So
Yeah, we're
if you want,
good. We're fine.
if you want.
We're fine. So
Okay.
with
good.
this design, so I can tell you that.
Okay. Do you mind if I move you guys on to the next topic?
Yeah, I guess I was going to bring up another topic, but you might be bringing it up. So
Okay, since definitions are right in front of me, the zoning district does not allow a two-family dwelling unit, or a multi-family, it has to be single-family only. They are both defined terms. So a single family means a building detached from other buildings that is designed for use as a dwelling unit exclusively by one family as an independent housekeeping unit and located on individual lots. Two-family dwelling means a building containing two townhouses, row houses, condominiums, or apartments designed for use by two families. And again, families is a defined term as well. Each family living in a separate dwelling unit within the building as an independent housekeeping unit, with each unit having separate entrance. So they don't seem to meet the definition of building for families. Based on how our land use code reads. In other jurisdictions I work, the design dictates it, but the definitions here, it's really more the use and functionality. The occupants. So the applicants here have intended that it is actually one family, by the way our family reads, because they are related by blood. So are you guys okay with this being defined as a building single family? And do they need to remove one kitchen to make it a single family?
Can you repeat the definition of a family?
Find the actual family definition. It's a long definition. There's there's 4 different ways you can meet it. Family means one or more persons living together as a single household unit who are related by blood, marriage, lawfully recognized in partnership, legal adoption, foster care, blah, blah, blah. Or up to 5 people not related by blood, although that's a long one. A family foster home, or a group of persons which qualify in both character and number as lawfully recognized group home. So that just captures some legally required things. But it's mostly one or more persons living together related by blood.
So in other words, you could have a multi-generational and multi-sibling household where if I have 10 kids, I could have all 10 families, maybe, or subfamilies.
Right, that's the
with their
question.
kids in this entity, and that would be
Right, that's the question. Can you keep dividing this house? Even though they're all related by blood, they're siblings? Can you have 5 separate dwelling units if they're all siblings?
Yeah, you know,
See, that's the-
I would think that there'd be a limit, like you wouldn't want, you know, again, I have a big family. I have 100, first cousins. You don't want them all, I'm making that up, but you don't want them all live with me in one structure. That's not the intent here.
Yeah.
Having
Right.
two
I don't,
families.
I don't think in
Right,
this.
so that's where it gets questionable, but our definitions seem to support the applicant's proposal.
Right. I think this house obviously isn't being built to be a duplex or, even with two kitchens and whatever, sometimes you get into these kind of houses that do have a butler's kitchen or whatever, and they need it because of a house is big. Obviously, there's going to be entertaining going on and stuff like that.
To that point, this individual's going to do some business in this house, as I do. I have a home office. At what point does that become commercial?
Well,
I
you
guess
can have a home
my
office.
question.
Well, right, but if you have a home office with
Only when it
gym
becomes a
and-
primary
and
use.
other people start working there, I mean, I'm the only one that works in my home office.
That comes into play the entire section on having a residential. Here's a word for it. We have a home occupation section of the code, which says if you're not bringing in employees, and it's just you working inside the place, you're okay. But once you look into whether you've got a home occupation that's impacting the neighborhood, that section deals with, are you bringing people from the outside? If you're cutting hair and you've got customers lining up outside.
What if I want to have I want to have upper management at my house for meetings and a little bit of fun on the mountain for, a weekend of primarily, work meetings.
That's just invited guests, but you can bring anybody, your friends over.
And a write-off.
It has nothing to do with your business. The situation that I'm trying to address is if you've got some kind of business in which there's an impact on the community, usually it's cars, employees coming in, you have 5 cars parked during the daytime hours because they're switching through, you're cutting hair, customers are coming and going. That's not permitted. But you can operate a home occupation that doesn't have those kinds of things. Can't have signage, can't look like a commercial business. All that's in the code under home occupations. Your situation where you bring in people who are related to you through business environment, that's okay. But they're invited guests. Okay? That happens from time to time. We're not going to get out and regulate that. Go to each person and say, what's your relationship? And if they say, I'm a business acquaintance, oh my God, we're freaking out because it's a business that he's expanding. No, we're not going to worry about that. The issue with regard to family, the code is attempting to say, if I look at a single lot and there are separately designed single family units in which you have kitchen, bathrooms, sleeping areas, and a separate entrance, you got 2 of them. That's the intent of the regulation. Okay, but if you have an internal kitchen such situation that can be perhaps used by part of your family, and it's in the structure, it's basically in the basement. We see this a lot, right? You have a separate, down in the basement, you've got a kitchenette, you've got a bathroom, but it's all part of the same unit. And those people all are related to each other. That's okay. It's when you start cutting into pieces. Because here's the biggest problem that the interpretation can lead to. If the interpretation you're reaching is dependent upon the familial relationship, what if they go away and you bring in a different family? Then you're in violation.
Yeah.
And that's not the way we want to interpret.
That would be my concern looking at the plans. I mean, it's completely looks like a mirror image. 2 halves mirror imaged. There is a common entrance, but they can completely be locked off from each other and used separately, and down the road gets sold or gets rented out or sold, and lived in one side and rent out the entire other side is essentially an accessory dwelling unit. And we also have a carriage house, which is permissible only in Spruce Valley Ranch. But so now essentially this one lot could potentially have 3 separate dwelling units. Whether or not their intent currently is to use it that way, there's the potential in the future that this property, if built as is, could certainly be, you know, 3 separate short-term rentals, or whatever scenario you can imagine with 3 separate standalone units.
With that said, and I know each case is on its own, like I recall another case that we had approved up here where, they could put in a door and and then they had another basically separate unit. And it didn't show, I guess that one didn't show a kitchen now.
Yeah,
It was easily, you just put a kitchen in.
Yeah,
And
it didn't
so,
show, but it didn't show a kitchen. But it was. We were worried about the potential
Right.
for an accessory dwelling unit.
And I do get what you're saying, because I'm looking at like, oh yeah, this is just for him, but like you say, if this ever got sold, it's two units.
Right.
It's 2 houses. Even though, because that is one thing that we definitely have looked at, not letting people have 2 full kitchens, because that the potential of them
Even if it was just
making
a
it into a lock-up.
Yeah,
No matter
it's
what.
just a basement versus upstairs. This is like 50-50 right down the middle.
That's why it balances so well.
Well, he's very strict on trying to be equal to his daughters. I mean, he keeps a ledger and
There's a piece of gum here, there's a piece of gum there, trust me.
Maybe just do
My
it
hands
like
are tied on
central-
that.
a central kitchen with 2 entries into it.
Well, we do have common area in the middle because they do have entrances on the side. And we do have a common area in the middle because that goes all the way down. So there is common in the
Right.
house. So theoretically, you can't. Structurally, you can't subdivide this into 2 houses because there's common floors going all the way through. Structurally, there's no partitions or party walls or
that's
anything.
not.
So from a building standpoint, there's nothing there for a duplex other than looking like a duplex. And as far as, the interpretation of from a planning side for a duplex, yes, like I said, it looks like a mere flip, but here again, the doors and everything do not count the way it's designed now it counts as 1 unit.
Right.
Just because of the way the doors are.
Except it does have 2 full kitchens.
It's
That does always in our definition.
Yeah, our definition of lock-off unit is where that becomes a problem.
Right.
I didn't get into that definition in my drawing here because I was really saying, is it a 1-family or 2-family? I wasn't really getting into lock-off unit. But if you read the definition of lock-off unit, it really does beat that, and our code prohibits lock-off units. So,
Right.
so that's another hurdle you guys need to
Yeah.
get past. You could also put a condition when you end up approving this that you're approving under the condition of.
and what would be the threshold for that? You can do anything with construction.
Right.
This place is huge. You could make 4 homes out of this if you really wanted to. You can make 10 homes out of it, and so like at what point do you say, yeah, you could cut and it's even and all that stuff, and that's great, and it looks nice, but again, like the place up here, you could put a door in and make it into, but didn't have the kitchen. You could put the kitchen, what's the threshold?
I mean, it's kind of the second full kitchen. I think is kind of within our code is kind of the threshold. I mean, looking like the main floor could certainly be split into 2 separate units. If you look at the upper floor, there is the common rec room, which, currently, like, it would be impractical to divide it. There's a fireplace dead center. But, remove the fireplace, put in a wall, down the road, I mean, it could be kind of separated.
Well, someone who can afford to buy this house could do a pretty good remodel.
There's the common,
Would it be like they go like, well, I don't know if I can afford
I mean,
to.
there's common hot tub deck,
Oh,
common hot tub deck on that level as well. I guess I haven't really looked at basement gallery level, I guess it's called.
Yeah, we'll get to that one in a minute. I would like everyone to read the definition of lock-off unit though, just to make sure you're aware of it.
I couldn't find anything in your zoning saying 2 kitchens, because I know
That's-
IRC, you're allowed 2 kitchens.
That's the only spot that the kitchens really come into play. It says the presence of 1 or more facilities, conveniences, equipment, or amenities that customary associated with the kitchen. i.e. range, cooktop, refrigerator, sink, 220 outlet, shall be the presumption the space is intended to be used as for a separate dwelling unit. So the presumption, a really powerful word, to say basically if it's there, you can't do it.
And we've enforced repeatedly against people who have taken the space above their garage,
Yep.
put in everything you need to live there. And some have said to us, oh, well, it's for a family. My family's gonna live there. It's still a separate dwelling unit, and it's not permitted. Because think about this, in this situation, one of the daughters, are they married? One of the daughters meets somebody, gets married, moves to Alabama. Does that mean that side of the building can never be occupied? Because it's supposed to be one family, right? And so what if they put in somebody who's not related by blood, marriage, or adoption? How are we gonna monitor that and enforce that? We're gonna have to say, you got 2 units, now that the daughter's out, you got no other relatives, they can't take that over, it's gonna be dead space. And we're gonna have to enforce that. It was not the intent of the regulations. The intent of the regulations is we don't want people to install on a single lot 2 facilities, two single family residential units. However, they might be older. Cut it in the middle, put it above the garage. We've had this problem.
Well, and we, in this circumstance, there's 3. Because
And there could be
there's the carriage
Carriage
house,
as well, which we'll get to next.
because there's also the carriage house, so, which is, not permitted, but it is permitted because the PUD of Spruce Valley Ranch, so, I mean, this is kind of like, going above and beyond that, and, like I said, what happens in the future, this is potentially 3 separate units. I think if there wasn't the carriage house, you could argue that with the PUD of Spruce Valley Ranch, that half of the house is the carriage house or something, but like,
The Spruce Valley Ranch define carriage house.
I don't know if they do.
Yeah, they can be over
Yeah.
500 square feet.
Yeah,
Which is, because it's probably smaller footprint, so. But as far as, we don't have any say over SVR regulations. But I think it is pretty clear that it doesn't exactly comply with Blue River and our definition of a dwelling unit, or having 2 dwelling units is essentially because of what did you read that again if you have that pulled up?
Block off unit?
Yeah, just lock
Yeah,
up.
it says capable of being separated by walls or other dividing elements. The presence of one or more facilities, conveniences, equipment, or amenities customarily associated with the residential kitchen, this is what those are, and bathroom bathing facilities. Shall create the presumption the space is an independent dwelling unit.
I think that there's 3 criteria.
Separated kitchen.
Separated, it could be separated. I mean, the main floor is already separated. It's not currently separated on the other 2 floors, but like you said, easily could be. And it has the bathroom, it has the kitchen facilities. I mean, it's everything there to completely make it like 2 units, which is exactly the purpose of that language. It's the presumption. It's not even the fact that it is currently or being built as that. With all those elements there, the presumption is there that it could be. I think it does meet all 3 of those criteria.
And the only way to kind of go around that, if you're prone to approve the plan, is to put a fairly detailed condition on approval. And I would recommend that the condition be recorded against the property.
Yeah.
Identifies the condition under which they have to leave the space open. So it's a single family unit as opposed to 2 separate ones. So we have to carefully draft that language and record it against the property. That way, if someday we go out there and find out it's been leased out for short-term rental or otherwise, long-term rental, because they've gone in and cut off the door, at least whatever it takes. We can go back to the recorded restriction in the title, and enforce against it, and tell them to clean it out. It's difficult. We had this problem many years ago when somebody moved another family in above the garage. And so when we went out there and knocked on the doors, and you can't have two families living on the same lot, you know how hard that was to effectively evict a family who just moved in? You know, it was traumatized. They were traumatized. Right. But that was illegal. And it was difficult for us to actually pull that trigger. So the way we want to do this is not allow it to start up, not
Right.
allow it to be
And
established.
in the past, we've shot down everybody that's ever tried to put two kitchens in the inn every time.
And tonight we're going to talk about garages and revisions to the garage section. There's an express requirement in there that you can't put a livable unit above the garage,
Right.
period. So it's not the situation where we may see that again. The garage cannot be approved with the second unit capable of upstairs. So this is a tough one. If you want to move forward on it, you're going to have to draft something that makes this one dwelling unit, even though it's got two kitchens.
So even if we just say approve it with one kitchen, we still have to do,
I don't think.
No, I think that would be
that's what you're
that would
saying,
be the workaround to.
the two kitchens.
I mean, I think
My only fear is because we've done things in the past where it supposedly doesn't set a precedent, and the next guy that walks in says you did it here, and then we're in that planning and zoning. You guys approve that one, apply it, and then that's our.
We both served on architecture review committee boards, so we kind of get the gist of that.
That
So I understand
we've
that.
got
And I think the condition seems reasonable.
Well, you haven't read it yet.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a reasonable suggestion because I don't know how you regulate what could happen.
And that is the thing, because you never know what's gonna happen in the world. Even this guy who can afford to
Anything could
build
happen
this,
on
but
any house, right? How do you regulate that?
no,
That's difficult.
you can't.
Are you guys open to just removing that second kitchen?
As a last resort, yeah. But I mean, if there's a workaround, I'd be open to that. I mean, if it's months and months, then
If
we would
you have to
probably
draft it, and these folks need to say that's what they want,
You
but
know.
it have to be something enforceable by us. So it could be pretty stringent, and it would be filed against the title. of the property.
Yeah, and I'd have to take that to the owner and make sure he's.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's effectively
I feel like we're gonna
Yeah.
keep this now.
as opposed to use the covenant with an
We're
HOA.
gonna get someone else in here.
Nothing's for them.
They don't-
It limits the resale of the property, but his intended use is single family. I mean, he's never gonna sell it. So, I mean, his kids at some point will, I
Well,
guess,
that's the
but
problem. The
Yeah.
problem is one side says, I'm out of here to Alabama.
Yeah.
And then they lease it because it's leasable. It's a great unit,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so that
yeah,
would
it's
not
still
be
connected. It would have to be.
They'd have to do some modification. So we'd have to have a restriction that modification can never be done.
I guess
They have to come in for a permit to get it legal.
Well, exactly.
Right.
I guess Bob, I mean, Tim, I guess if we're understanding like the next step is, one, would we even be comfortable with having the two kitchens with some sort of, legal covenant that the town would own?
I think we're opening up a can of worms with that.
Because if we were even comfortable with that, I think then the next step is the owner even comfortable with that before we spend any time
Right.
drafting such covenant? But if we're not even comfortable with going down that road, then
Just because of the history of what we've done in the past, when we've done an exception, it doesn't ever be, it tends to come back around.
certainly, I don't disagree. I mean, I think if we were looking at these plans and there was a central kitchen and then everything else was
Right,
split 50-50, but there's the single central kitchen,
exactly.
and that would okay, we get it. It's looks like it's kind of a duplex. There's two garages, and there's two game rooms, and two of everything, two saunas, etc. But there's the central kitchen. That definitely speaks to single family dwelling. Because it would take some work, but it wouldn't be that difficult to the main floor is already separated. The top floor wouldn't take much to separate. I think that presenting something like that, I think would be a no-brainer. I think we're all comfortable with height, as explained. If we're going to accept the interpretation that the north and south garage entrances are basement entrances. But yeah, I don't disagree. I think it would be hard to make an exception for something like this, because it would just,
We've never done.
we've never
We've
done
never done it, and when
Not 9 years
when we
ago.
do something,
and it just screams two separate short-term rentals in the future.
Yeah.
/ 3 separate short-term
but
rentals.
otherwise it looks great.
Did
As
you
long as your heights work and
issues?
Yeah, I got 2 more issues to deal with. Garage and the carriage house. Which one do you guys want to do next?
Since we're in the house,
Go
do the garage.
Garage. Okay, so there's a code section in our garage that says garages are limited to 25% of the total square footage. But there's a definition of garage. So if you can all guys flip to the lower level sheet, kind of get an idea of where I'm looking. Then I'll read you the definition of garage. Garage means an enclosed or partially enclosed non-habitable space designed, suitable, or intended for the storage, whether permanent or temporary, of one or more motorized vehicles or personal recreational motorized vehicles together with materials, goods, or equipment any other sort or type. A garage may also be used by the owner or tenant of the principal permanent structure for any lawful common arts studio, blah, blah, blah. Actually, that's probably important. We read that. The garage may also be used for because we're defining garage, but or tenant of the principal permitted structure for any lawful ancillary activity commonly associated with residential use, such as but not limited to hobbies, art studio, or greenhouse. So, habitable, I guess, is where we are getting hung up here. The applicant is indicating that it's a gallery / man cave, which is questionably habitable. So you guys see
so the rumor is this guy's got quite an auto collection.
Like I see, I left entire racks.
It's just a rumor, but that's why I think this big gallery.
Right, so it's a muscle car storage is really what it is. It's a display, it's a museum. I'm not calling it a commercial space. It's not a automotive workshop. It's not a museum. It's not commercial. It still fits into the residential realm. However, does it meet the definition of garage? Because if it does, it far exceeds the maximum area.
I think it's a combination. I think it is garage, but mainly just where you pull your cars in, and the rest is more of a display gallery. Is what I think.
Without,
is
how
the
do you
thing.
define the area?
So
I needed calculations then. What do we call a garage?
to me, it's what because isn't this where the entries of the garages are, and almost
So-
straight into those bays?
We also have to be fair about other people. So when
Right.
this issue comes up, I usually make them shrink the garage and turn an area into storage, or some sort of mechanical room, something that's not directly garage with walls. So if we're going to call this space any portion of it a garage, I've always required walls to separate garages.
And the garage definition doesn't say anything about being above or below ground.
No, it is simply the use. It's non-habitable use, designed, suitable, or intended for motor vehicle.
And that entire space is suitable and certainly intended for the storage of vehicles.
So what if you? I
So
don't know.
they're
if
questioning
this
the habitable.
Right.
They're trying to say it is a habitable space.
Yeah, it's a gallery.
But would they have to have partitions off to block off part of the garage?
That's what I've required.
That's what I'm wondering. Is that doable to
Statistically.
have some kind of not temporary walls or something to make it like it's partitioned off, but then it's display in the garage, or does it have to be all wide open? The way it,
Did you scale out like what that square footage?
Yeah, it came out to right around 38% of the building. So
25%.
25 is the max, so they're way over. If we count
Well-
the entire lower level and the dual upper level garages, all as garage.
Is there, because it's 25%, but is there, and I know there's been other properties with large garage, but is there just a max square footage, or is that just with detached?
Not once you get over 5,000 square foot of a building size.
So then over 5,000, there's not a maximum.
No.
It's just the percentage.
And you included the other garages,
The two 1,200 square foot, I think they're maybe 800 square foot above, yeah.
you included that in that 30,
Yeah, and that's how it came up with 38 or 39%.
I mean, trying to argue that it's a gallery, but then there's automotive lift, trailer storage, and tire racks. It's a garage. It's for whether you're displaying the cars or not. It's non-habitable space to store automobiles, and a trailer, and you have a car lift. It's potentially work on cars. I mean, that's most definitely a garage.
Hopefully I'm not speaking out of pace here a little bit, but I do believe the intent of this code is to prevent a dominant massive garage from the exterior.
right?
They did place this underground,
right?
almost invisible to the neighbor.
Which, I mean, personally, I have no problem with it. 'Cause
Right.
I love cars.
That's where.
If I could have this size of garage,
I'll take one step.
I did. But it's also, we're not the board of trustees. It's not our place to.
I think in this situation, because that's what I think that was the intent of the percentages, was that this big obtrusive garage overwhelming the building where this does.
For everybody.
What's that?
Did John ruin this for everybody with his garage mahal?
Yeah. He did. And he's proud of it. Calls it, he named it the Garage Mahal.
Because that would not, that does not
That's a new
mean correct code.
So I'm hearing everyone saying at least a portion of this is garage.
So, I mean, I think, there's a garage door, there's a driveway, it's for automobiles, there's a trench drain.
I think
It's a gallery. It's been approved before across the street.
I know. I didn't approve,
To your point,
I
you
didn't
guys
approve that. I don't
said
know
you already
who
have a
approved
precedent.
The presence is there.
Don't be setting precedents. Tim and I have been around here for a long time.
Right. Your thoughts?
Well, one, there's no precedent in land use, so the fact that you approve something before doesn't mean you have to continue to prove it, and it violates the code. You could make a mistake. Oftentimes municipalities do it, but once you figure out that you made a mistake, you don't repeat it.
Right.
And so there's no precedent. The question is, there's some common sense involved here with the garage. If you all know what a garage is, okay, you're not going to go out there, put in a cot, sleep there, okay, put in the couch, the TV, make it happen, right? You're not going to do that to a garage space. So if this garage space is constructed in a way that is limited to the storage of vehicles, and it's not a place you're going to go out and sleep and hang out and habitate in, then it's a garage. There's some common sense here. And if the intent of the space is truly to store vehicles, I think the conclusion that's a garage is pretty easy. And the whole intent of the section that limits the size of the garages by the Board of Trustees was very adamant. And the fact they did not want effectively a small apartment and 20 cars being able to park there. You lease the space out and make money because you can store people's cars. This is done in Denver quite a bit. You see these units where you can store cars. It's an attractive thing for some people who have very valuable cars and they're not going to drive in the wintertime. They want to park it somewhere. And so you could, if you interpret this to be a gallery, they could have somebody could have a small apartment, 20 parking spaces in the gallery. And that's wasn't the intent of the section. The section is, a garage is a garage, we know what it is. If you have too much garage space, the unit is predominantly garage, not enough residence.
So you gotta make the house bigger.
So one solution would be that they get it down, the garage space down to the percentage required. And convert the other space to habitable place. What you usually see is drywall, air conditioning, heating, the kind of things that would make it little. Garages typically don't have all of that. They may be needed, but you're not pumping air conditioning into your garage.
Do you want to explain what that space would look like?
In the new scenario? Or what?
It's not clear in your drawings. Is it fully finished drywall,
Oh, yeah,
tables, fully heated?
air
Like
conditioning,
the other building that was already brought up.
yep, tile floors.
There's-
Video games.
There's almost a bar.
Yeah.
Right, there's video games, there's pinball machines, there's everything in this space.
In the car.
It's a man cave.
And some nice cars.
Yeah.
That's
Those are really nice.
Because it would be habitable, I guess, from what I'm hearing, the design structure.
I'm trying to stay independent here, so. We talked about, he thinks it's habitable, and that's how I presented it to you, that it's habitable. Leave it up to you guys to decide.
I like it.
Except personally, I like it too. Wish I had it.
That's above it. Say hi.
I will just live in the basement, in the gallery.
He does, yeah.
I know. Yeah, are we allowed to come visit?
Of course.
Well, and again, back to intent, my thought would be the intent of not wanting a garage this big is if the garage was really visible and that it dwarfed the structure and it just looked like you had this garage.
That's-
Again, here this is, it's underground. The house is huge, but again, I mean, the garage or whatever we want to call this thing is underground. I mean, you got
I think it works in this situation.
If it had no garage door access and you pulled into a smaller square footage and you had an elevator to go down to or go up to a gallery, is that like, there's an obvious separation of the spaces at that point. Would you say the percentage?
39%.
It's a large space, but
So Bob, you started to ask Bob about that scenario. Let's say we had to shrink it to that percentage. What would you do with that space?
Guess it becomes storage. You're saying that's what we have to do.
Yeah, when I said storage, I kind of hesitated because in the definition of garage, it still includes storage.
but I would envision like there's a divider wall.
Right.
You would have the bar area,
Yeah, we would probably need
Right,
some sort of physical
whatever.
barrier.
It was
This
like-
is the garage, this is the party.
And you discount where the cars actually are, because when you're in a garage, it's maybe 24 by 24. I mean, those cars take up most of the space.
Correct.
In this scenario, we got a drive-through that's going through, which has no cars. That's just void space to the gallery. So really, you should just be looking at the space of the left of
But
the
again,
car.
I'm looking at the air volume.
and the question is like currently the intended layout, like, you're gonna have to drive through, your car's gonna be off to the sides. But just like with the second kitchen, future uses, not necessarily what current owner, current builder, current architect intends, but what could it be used for? What could it be intended for? And that's where the waters get muddy because you could just,
In a conference, big conference rooms where they, you can turn one big room into four smaller rooms, where you can move the walls, would that still?
I would ask that question of you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the, like, how do we want to interpret that? I mean,
Once they open
because,
those
you know,
walls, what is it?
Yeah, and we're
Now
back,
it's a garage.
we're back to 38%.
I mean,
Yeah.
could you put a 3 foot tall railing divider, and then they're 2 separate rooms? Yeah, I mean, we could call it whatever we want. I mean, it could be something as simple as that. You know, having a divider. If there's going to be like a bar area or something like that, like illustrate, like, all right, these are the areas that the cars are getting parked in. Here's a divider. This is like where the couch is in the bar area. I mean, it wouldn't take much to like illustrate that there's separated uses of this space. It's not say,
Well, you're trying to get rid of what, 18%? Is that what we're trying to do?
Yeah, we're trying to get rid of like 3,000 square feet.
Well, if you do have the mechanical, did you count the mechanical?
Yeah, I only scaled the actual volume areas.
Okay.
But that was also a rough, quick scale. So we leave that up to you to actually produce the number.
Yeah, we got to put the percentage on the plan.
Right.
You gotta have a bunch of little figures drawn around the
It's really
bar.
just one big room mechanical. Well, it's one big room with a powder.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Occupancy plan, we'll put the people in section.
So would I be correct to say that the board believes as currently presented it's a garage?
Yes.
it's hard. Yeah,
I mean, if it's housing cars, it's a garage. I mean, you can call it, I guess, a gallery. But I mean, if there's cars, it's a garage.
What if it was artwork?
Instead of cars, I mean, this so
Well,
happens
if
to
it
be a
was-
car that's a
if
big.
it was artwork,
Something big.
If it was,
Lack of an interior
Yeah.
wall, there's a garage door
Yeah.
opening
You
into
have to get the
space.
art in somehow.
but the
You
art,
have to get the art in somehow.
the artwork, if you had artwork, you'd need more wall space probably, which would divide it up.
Yeah.
Work doesn't tend to drive off. Yeah, so that's a bit of a gray area.
I mean, they could be statues.
Gold one.
But I guess, I
I
mean,
mean, I agree with the intent. I mean, it's buried under the house. Nobody's ever going to see even the garage doors.
It doesn't add to that massing of it.
Yeah, it doesn't add to the massing of the house.
Here's the issue. I wish the code said what you guys are saying, that if it's not visible from outside, it looks like a house, walks like a house, talks like a house. The fact that there's extra garage space that you don't know about, I wish it said that, but it doesn't. It says simplage.
So, and the language also exists that the garage may also be used, so expanding the definition of garage beyond motor vehicles and personal recreational motorized vehicles. A garage may also be used by the owner or tenant of the principal permitted structure, such as but not limited to hobbies, art studio, or greenhouse. So there's other uses that would also fall under the definition.
Which
of
uses are
garage.
not habitable space? I'm a woodworker. And if I have a wood shop, it's not a place I'm gonna go sleep and hang out, put in the couch and have beer. It's a place where I'm in a shop. If I had a separate part of the shop, which is a lounge, it would be habitable space, not the shop.
Yeah, I think if it can be defined and separated somehow, just to, I mean, it's kind of, we understand the intent and the show space, the gallery for the cars, but to try to make it a little easier for us to.
Charlie, you said about 3,000 square feet?
If I'm running calculations correct in my head, yeah, they'd be
Roughly.
by about 3,000 square feet.
So you'd lose 3 to 4 car space.
You'd lose
Almost half.
you'd lose space to park vehicles. which is
Right.
A garage. So you'd have to lose the space for parking vehicles and make it into something else.
Yes.
to be able to-
Does he need a machine shop to work on the engines and lathes
He
and
works
mills?
across the street, so
Right.
it's strictly a gallery.
Do these cars have gasoline and oil in them, or are they parked and are intended to stay parked? I mean, that I think
Some are intended to stay parked.
leads towards the definition of a garage. If it's a car that goes in and then never leaves, you
Right.
know, I see a garage being something your car drives in and out of every day, and something
Yeah, that's
that
not-
melts out and
Yeah,
gets
that's
grit on the floor. And
But I'd ask you, if a typical garage has an inoperable vehicle, okay, it doesn't run, it's a Model A,
Right.
okay? And the guy puts it there because he wants to store it, and it doesn't run, it's not gonna go in and out of the garage, is it still a garage? Now it's not a garage, now it's just storage of a car as opposed to storage of a car.
Well,
It could be a statue.
It could be a statue.
We're really reaching ours right now.
It's already.
Let's address that. You don't know what a garage is. You don't say, oh, they're storing art there, so it's a garage. You know, you could have a very large space in a house that's got figurines
I've been in a house that had-
paintings and
yeah.
had too in Cherry Hills Village.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not uncommon. That you have a place that people hobnob with a glass of wine and they see stuff.
Yep.
It's not a garage, right? It is habitable space. You habitate there.
Yep.
You have friends over. It's
Exactly. And that's what he does.
and that's not a garage. So yes, you're right. If it had statues and artwork in it, would it be a garage? No, probably not.
Well,
That's-
the cars are the statues.
You know, I would like to
that's
say
tough- that's a
everyone,
tough one to sell.
everyone knows what a
There's
garage is.
also, you know,
But I would like to say, being in the owner's other building, it really doesn't feel like a garage. So, you know, I know what a garage is, I'm gonna call it a garage, but being in the other
Yeah.
person, maybe that's even like a field visit, to be
Right.
like, what is this place really gonna be? Being in that other building, you don't have a feeling that it is a garage. Not that it changes anybody's viewpoints here, but
And it's a lot more visible. It's got 8 doors. This is buried underground, 2 doors on either side that you'll never see.
I will again bring up, I guess, the point that for planning purposes, this cannot be just constrained to the current owner's
Right.
intent of the building. So
Yeah,
we have to
how
have a
about that?
forward facing perspective here as well.
Approved for condition or?
That'd be a tough condition. The condition would have to say that in the future,
He leaves it to the town of Blue River.
Sorry,
to Greg.
the garage can't be used as a garage.
can't be used for the storage of not nice cars, not collectible. No Pontiacs. Mercedes.
I mean, I,
It's a tough condition.
whereas I sit, I'm on a Keystone, but I know I have, seen people have multiple, well, let's restrict this lot here on height and so forth, so that way it doesn't get view. And it goes along with the title and so forth. So there's ways of putting conditions on that because it goes with the property the way it is. So,
And I'm aware of that. I do that for municipality, but ultimately, it's a condition that you have to monitor,
yeah, it's,
and that's what we want to get away from.
yeah, you're not
two
complete,
steps.
so you're not complete about the patrolling.
Get out there and check.
Be a tough sell to get the board to agree for a position for that.
Field trip.
but I would argue that
I think
some of
you're
those-
So I think the argument is whether it's a gallery or a garage, right? Willing to say it's a gallery or.
So are we gonna go through all the three, the main level with that being 2 living spaces and 2 kitchens, the garage, and now do we wanna touch base on the carriage house and then go back and say,
I think the applicant needs a little more direction of how to come forward again with the garage. Are you saying, he's asking, can it be a gallery? Are we good with it as is? Does he need to divide it in half? And how does he need to divide it in half if he does?
And that ultimately, the question comes down to this. 2 weeks from now, with another application, the guy comes in and he's got has excessive percentage. He goes, well, I know it looks, walks and talks and is a garage, but let's call it a gallery. See, you can't just change the name if the definition is met on the use. The only way to get this one down would be to cut up the space in a way that it is a lounge, it is a bar, is a place where you habitate. And then there's cars on the other side, and glass wall, if you will. That would be one way to do it. But I don't think that would meet this owner's intent because this owner needs space to park a nice vehicle. That's called a garage.
Really need to focus on the definition of garage. Does it need it or not?
I call it a garage. I mean, there's cars in it. And
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's some sort of separation between a separate use within that instead of one large open space, that you could say like, all right, here.
You gotta make a bigger house.
Um,
By 3,000 square feet.
Well,
It's not uncommon.
got room.
Let's look at two situations. Blue River, okay? I was the town or city attorney for Cheryl's Village for 9 years, like the city of Centennial, and came to you guys. That city, that town or that village had to change its regulations to accommodate extremely wealthy people who live there, who do what? Gallery cars. So they had to blow open the definition to the car storage to make it, if they're really nice cars, that's okay. And so they do have homes there that may be not 20,000 square feet with a monster garage associated with it. And it's all storage vehicles. They had to change the regulations to accommodate that kind of practice. We're Blue River. How many times are we going to get people coming to us and say, I want to store a whole lot of cars in a gallery? And the question is, where's this going to go? Where's this going to lead? It was never the intent to have most of a large portion of the house dedicated to parking cars.
So here's a interesting language, just going back to the reading maximum garage size, because we have essentially 3 garages on this property: the gallery,
4.
lower garage, 4.
The carriage house.
Well, so not including the carriage house, because that would be a separate structure.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up as well.
But we'll get to that in a second. We haven't talked about the carriage house yet. But maximum garage size. So the definition there is the maximum total size in square feet of the first floor of any garage or garages on a lot. But then it says on a lot, whether detached from or incorporated into a principal permitted structure. So first floor, I mean, could it be interpreted that the gallery or the lower level is the first floor, and then you don't count the garages that are located above that?
I think you just answered your question in your own answer there. You call them garages. I think the intention
But
of
it
that
says
was
the first floor.
the intention of that is a detached garage with a living space office above it.
Yeah.
They were trying to say do not include the gross area of that entire building.
At the second floor.
Right. That's not a garage space. That's a office space. So
Yeah.
you do include where you park the car, and you don't include where you're going to have an office.
Exactly, because you don't see garages in which you park upstairs and down below is what happens. So I like
I get what you're saying, but you call them both garages.
Yes, but
Like,
it
that's your
is interesting that it specifically
floor.
calls out first floor of any garage or garages. Right. Because it does offer the plural, the first floor of garages, plural. Whether detached from or incorporated into.
So that's where I was going to next. The carriage house has a garage. Does that garage of the carriage house count towards the square footage of the entire property?
Yes. The detached space.
this is what,
The detached space that's used by commercial.
So where does that put us?
Makes you more. You need your like 40%. Okay, so if they divided the space, would you be okay with a flooring change to divide the space? Do you need a handrail or a full divisor wall? For consistency's sake, I required a wall on other projects.
But I think it really depends upon, is the space habitable? Let's talk about a railing wall. Is that space that's not used for parking vehicles? It's space for habitation. Regardless of whether it's a railing or a wall, whatever.
Right, it would have to not meet the definition of garage.
You
and have to
can't
meet
park
the
cars.
definition.
Great, so it doesn't park cars, but it's used for
So, so as long as it's habitable and there's no parking of cars, it's meet those 2 criteria.
Which, I mean, I think the garage is habitable. It's gonna be very nice, and it's air conditioned, it's heated, et cetera. It's just gonna keep them unfinished. But yeah, there's no separation, like you could park cars anywhere in that space currently. And then, like I said, we have the upstairs garage, 2 garages, and then the carriage house as well.
Okay, so unclear, just a separation of space. Propose something.
And it would have to be one in which you're confident that they're not gonna park vehicles, it's just not suitable. Can't.
Like a railing, I mean, a railing could just be set,
Stanchions, yeah.
stanchions that you basically pull
Yeah, like at the airport.
in. So does he own all these cars yet, or is he gonna have them off on line?
What? No, he's constantly buying some, so.
You know, it's a garage.
So maybe you can figure out a way.
Is there any flexibility on your percentage? We have to get exactly to
Well,
25%.
Would they be able to, well, the variance, we know how stringent variance requests. are.
Right.
Do they have a hardship?
Yeah.
That-
Yeah, I don't think it's a hardship. Like, this is probably on one of his personalized license plates, like.
Hardship.
Oh, I like that one too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, wow, because I'm like, we don't
We wanna,
make the rules. You know, I'm like, can the board of trustees like approve that, but it would be a variance request, and then like, yeah. it doesn't
All
make
right,
any
so
sense.
we'll get.
Has it been brought up to the HOA too, with Spruce Valley?
We've showed this stage away.
What's their take on it all?
They've approved it all.
We're done with that.
You're done with that?
Yeah.
so in all seriousness, if, I
They
mean, you're
contacted
building
me.
this 17,000 square
Yeah, no,
foot
the hot
house,
stuff's with us.
Yeah,
do you
they
have
asked
enough
me
room
Oh,
to
they
build
asked
the
What we're
house,
gonna say.
the house itself bigger to support the percentage on the garage?
I don't know how he's gonna react to this. You know, he's gonna be upset because the gallery's already
Right.
approved across the street. So, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you're adding on in all, you know, more building costs for sure, which doesn't seem to be a big issue. But you could, if he really wants his cars, which a lot of these kind of guys are, they'd rather have a car than all that house anyway. But to stretch his house out a little bit and keep the garage the same size, now you've got your percentage and he can pull all his cars.
Well, if you add in the square footage of the garage and the carriage house, it's a big percentage.
Right.
It's a lot of square
But
footage.
that's a lot of house already. Might not be an issue.
I'm gonna go ahead and move us along to the next
Yeah.
thing, because we got 2 more work
Yeah,
sessions to
sorry.
work on after this.
So for the HOA, they contacted me asking what we would think, and they kind of left it on us. They said that's not their regulation, it's our
And
regulation.
then what other concerns did you have about carriage?
The carriage house, just the fact that our code does not allow carriage houses, but we've allowed them in the past in
Oh,
Spruce Valley Ranch.
Yeah.
I'm assuming under the idea that it was a PUD.
Yeah.
And since it was a PUD, it can modify our town code, so we're okay with it.
yes.
Correct.
So just to
It's our
summarize,
regulations that allow carriage houses. Okay, it's not, this is really important. HOAs do not control land use. They can put covenants in place all day long to say certain things, but ultimately, the development has to meet the requirements of the government. Government can be more restrictive than HOA, because if we take the position that Spruce Valley Ranch can approve things that exceed our minimums or our maximums, they can see, well, oh, it's okay, it's Spruce Valley Ranch, they got covenants, they can allow 15 carriage houses and they can all be leased out for short-term rental. Yeah, it violates the town code, but they said it's okay. That's not the way it works. Because if it works that way, and that means he lives next door to me, and we can sign up a covenant, just the two of us, and say we can create, our property could be a meat rendering plant. He's gonna kill and taxidermy, and I'm gonna process the meat. And the government says, no, you can't do that. Well, the covenant says you can. Well, the government says you can't do it, so the government controls. We override covenants, okay? It's really important to know. So we've accommodated Spruce Valley Ranch because of PUD. It's not their covenants. Our approval of a development is the government's approval, not Spruce Valley Ranch. It's really important.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that everyone's good with that. It doesn't specifically say it in the code, but legally, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just gonna summarize, we've got the height issue. They'll give you grades,
Yep, I just
On
needed
that.
2 lines, existing, proposed grades.
single
We were good.
kitchen.
Yep.
And we need to cut the garage space to
25%
25%. Okay.
Including all.
And then
grades.
do we have to come back to this meeting in a month, or is there?
You need to
process
put
to
together
get-
your reapplication, submit it to us. If we can review it and get you on a new agenda, you will be on for next month.
And
If
No
if
chance
there's
for
a
sooner.
reasonable time frame between submittal and our being able to review it and getting it on the agenda. If it was 3 days before, then we
Right.
don't have the flexibility.
But no chance for sooner,
This is the next meeting is
and we have to come to the meeting to.
Correct.
Okay.
yeah, this was done as a very informal thing.
Appreciate
Yeah,
appreciate that.
Just to
Thank
give
you.
This is a work session.
Yeah.
We were in the formal process of approval, you get denied tonight.
Oh,
You
understood.
don't want that, right?
No.
So because of the complexity of the plan and these issues, the town was gracious, I would say, in giving an opportunity to hear the feedback without facing a decision.
Oh, I agree.
The decision in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I will note the decision discussion is going to be more of a discussion between the commissioners where they can ask, they can call upon you for specific information, but it's not really the dialogue that
Oh,
exists in
okay.
the work session. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And you will be provided an opportunity to pitch the plan that you submit.
It's building.
Because I want to pitch, how you inform the issues we talked about tonight.
Understood.
That's really important.
Yeah.
And then these guys will ask you questions or debate and come up with a decision.
Perfect. Thanks again.
Thank you. What runs up next?
Wetlands.
I'll do it. I'll try to be somewhat quick. So, at the last meeting, I was supposed to put together, some kind of bullets and suggestions. For Bob. And so part of the things that I was suggesting is focusing on definition of the wetland. And the group here wanted to use the current definition on the books to expedite us getting something to the trustees. And so what I did is I went back and I looked, I basically searched our land use document for wherever it said wetland. And there's really one section I think that's pertinent here, and it's section 16B 1320 entitled Wetland Protection. And what it says is the town of Blue River incorporates into the land use code the delineation of wetlands recognized and established by state and federal law. Okay, so if we leave that unchanged, which I'm still of the opinion we should not, I think to do this right, we need to look at that. Because there's been this federal case that basically changed how the feds deal with wetland. And in response to that, the state of Colorado passed a law, and in that law, there is definition. And I think probably we should be referencing that definition as our standard, but we're a little unique here in that there's kind of 3 criteria for wetlands usually. And one of them is that the area is wet significantly great portion of the year. And one of the things you have in this environment is you might have a stream coming out of a rock face wall. And I don't know where it is, but it's probably somewhere where it may not fit neatly into the state definition. And so there's ways to kind of broaden things. Now, I was focusing on definition. What I realized is that what I was really worried about was what triggers a wetland evaluation. Because somebody comes in, they bring your plans to Chad, and the plans say there's wetlands, they're not. We all don't know every lot in this town, and so there may be some obscure areas that might fall under whatever definition we're using. And so really, it's kind of like what triggers the evaluation. And Chad, you had put some stuff together, which I looked at kind of late. And so what I'm proposing with regard to definition.
That was his one, so he put that one together. So give him
Okay,
the stuff.
and with regard to what triggers this is one, I think it's probably okay to defer to the state's definition. But in terms of what triggers things, you use, there's a state definition for regulation, and then there's a definition of what a wetland is, and you would use the Army Corps of Engineers definition, which has not changed despite the change in the feds, and then focus on kind of what triggers a fair, appropriate, efficient process for requiring a formal expert coming in. And so again, I'm going to propose that what I give to you says, we're going to basically defer to the state now. Give us a little bit of latitude, though, to, and I don't know how we factor this in, to those places that maybe don't fall under the Army Corps of Engineers firm definition, but at least to use, I mean, that's got to come in here too, I think. And then in terms of the process for triggering the evaluation, unfortunately, it's more work for Chad up front. And what I was thinking is that there would be some sort of initial screen that would be done by you using a variety of databases, federal, state, our knowledge of the area. And then if it's determined that there's reasonable potential for wetland there, that we then give the applicant more questions about his property. Maybe do an administrative visit that Dan was talking about. And after that, if after the applicant screening, we still have concern, then we would require that the applicant provide us with a professional review that uses the Army Corps of Engineers as a standard. Does that kind of sound reasonable? And then I have other kind of bullet points of other things that we wanted to include, but I think we need to deal with the definition. And to Dan and everybody else's point that we want to move this along, I respect that. The trustees are, dealing with bigger fish right now, and I want to move this on, but I think that it deserves a little bit of attention to that, and I don't know how you feel.
I'm totally in line with where you're going with this. My biggest issue has always been, how can we simplify it so the administration is not going to, one, delay development unreasonably, two, make this guy work on wetlands more so than STRs, short-term rentals, because this whole thing with the very vagueness of the Army Corps definitions and the state definition, and the delegation from the feds to the state now has to take that over, so they gave us a very vague definition. What the hell does it mean? And when you look at the definition, the question is, who's qualified to say yes or no? It can't be you guys going out, you non-experts going out and looking at the site and going, it looks like wetlands to me. From a legal standpoint, that's challenging to defend. It's far better for us to identify, perhaps with the aid of an expert, and there are experts who's certified in wetland delineation, to identify generally within the town, this area that we kind of draw out. If you were in that area, you propose development, you got to get a delineation.
Just identify parcels that are probable.
Yeah, it's because up on Coronet, is there wetlands up there? It's so high up, I would doubt it, but
I mean, there is Pennsylvania Creek.
that area might be disturbed, right? But we can identify areas that we're not concerned about delineating because they may, with the assistance of this engineer who's certified, he can say no, or she can say no. These areas are not concerns for wetlands, but this area is. And once you map that out, we don't need to ask for a preliminary review. Go out there and look at it. We've already looked at it. We've already given a rough estimate of where wetlands may exist. And if you're in that area we designate, we delineate it, then you have to go get a formal delineation. You have to spend the money to do it. Understand that this is going to be time consuming and expensive for development. If you're going to go after this. And I'm telling you that the Board of Trustees is very much interested in protecting the environment. It's a real high priority for them. So if we came forward and said, we've got this plan to protect wetlands, you're gonna find them, they're gonna bite on it. They're gonna say yes. But we have to be cognizant of the fact that administering is difficult and it's expensive and time consuming for the developer.
And so to alleviate that, you're suggesting, I believe that I guess you're writing in the reg that the town has to, before we implement this, go out and do a survey, which right there is gonna, I have no idea what that kind of cost is to the government, to our town.
If there's an expert sitting at the table with us and he or she says, this area right here, draw the fat marker around this area right here, that's as detailed as it has to be. It's the preliminary step.
But we don't want to make it so onerous that half the town has to get a wetland expert to do work, you know? And so the smaller you draw the circle, the more data I need. Because the more exacting you need, the more money it's going to cost for the expert to draw the circle. I want to draw a circle over 3/4 of the town.
It's one end or the other. We can go out and we can spend a lot of money and have somebody go out and survey their entire town. It's like we've talked about with roads, and that's going to cost a lot of money. Identify every single lot that might have wetlands on it. Or we are very general, and we could look at a map. Between a map with the plot line, platted map with the lot lines, and Google Images, and get an expert, and they're like, all right, yep, let's circle these, and figure it out in a couple-hour meeting, and then at least we have something to start with. We can always get more detailed later.
Right. I guess my concern, kind of playing the devil's advocate. My personal bias is to protect the environment and to force people that want to develop to do their due diligence, even if that costs them money. But I'm also trying to look at it from, the guy down there who's 65 years old in this little old A-frame, and he needs to do some work, and now, he's got to go out and get a $1,000, $5,000 wetland analysis for the greater good. I think it's fine, but I'm just saying that if the bigger that circle is, the more onerous it is to the individual. I'm fine with that, but it's a bit, like you said, go one way or the other.
But we need to find, that's the whole point I think we're talking about. We need to find a middle ground. We're not going to just draw a circle around the entire town, but we're also not going to go out and individually pick this lot here, but not this lot right next to it, but this lot over, we can't.
And I guess it protects the town more if you have the experts say, and it does create less work for Chad.
So what we do
It's a trade-off.
What we do in Gilpin County is 1,000 feet from flowing water.
Say what?
In Gilpin County, we require a plan if you're within 1,000 feet of flowing water.
Yeah.
We consider
Flowing or standing?
Yeah, we consider that wetlands does not exist more than 1,000 feet of flowing water.
You remember?
Flowing or standing?
We say flowing.
And in this map, this initial map, saying it's not a map of wetlands. It's a map of, you would call it a map of the area of concern.
Yeah.
Exactly. Area of concern. You're in the area of concerns. Come to us and prove to us that you're not in the wetlands or going to invade the wetlands. There's wetlands on your property. So we have an idea of where the delineation is. So when you develop, we know where you have to stay away. That's really the intent. And it may be not that expensive to go to an expert and say, can you look at this property and give a preliminary call on whether there is a wetland? And that some experts might say, no chance in hell. Under the state's definition and the Army Corps, this is not, and they write up the report and say, no chance in hell, okay? And they give it to us. And we can accept that. We can also send that report to our expert to double check it if we don't believe it, right? That's the common way to do it. And this is all pushed to the developer, or to the owner. They have to pay the cost of the process. So when we take the map, or the delineation to our expert, they're paying for that. It's not falling on him, who's not an expert.
Exactly.
Okay? That's I think for this town, the better course of action. We are not big enough to have a staff of wetland experts like a county or a big city, which they do have. They have planners who specialize in this kind of stuff. And so it goes to them and they make the call. We don't have that, obviously. So we have to defer.
Okay, so it sounds like there's some degree of consensus. State Army Corps of Engineers have this process, which would start with a broad review by the town. The other things I think that there were consensuses that we would create a buffer of 12 feet, and that in that buffer, you were limited no soil disturbance, no overhanging or cantilevered or temporary permanent equipment or structures, no storage of equipment or materials, no storage in that area. Okay. Mitigation, I think we would require a mitigation plan with when they gave with the construction plan, that there's other stuff that they do with parking and things like that, that it would be part of that. We would require the applicant to provide that. Monitoring, we had talked, that would ultimately fall to the town enforcement code or engineer. Remediation, we didn't really talk about. I thought, you want to give them a couple of years to get it remediated, given the growth cycles here, but that it would have to be to our acceptance after, I would say, 2-year period, maybe 3 years. And then enforcement, whether or not the current enforcement rules are good or whether we would need different enforcement. And then there was talk about an exception, that if the buffer zone caused that lot to no longer be developable because it just shrunk it down so much, that then there would be an exception. But doesn't our variance, wouldn't the variance process be how you would get that exception as opposed to writing an exception into the wetland
The
rule?
idea was to write a simpler exception with the wetland rules so that we didn't have to go through the very strict, which we talked about, getting the trustees to modify what it takes to get a variance. But we wanted to make it simpler, more straightforward. When there's the 60-year-old guy lives in the A-frame that was, existing non-conforming, and he's right there, and he wants to fix his deck.
And this is extremely common in larger communities where they have variances, but they have things called exceptions. Different, easier process, and it's very focused. Whereas a variance process can be height, setback, a lot of different things. Okay, that you can come in and ask for. When it's wetlands, it's wetlands. I need to invade the wetlands or else my property is not developed. And there's a real reason for that exception. And the reason we have to do this is because if we draft regulations that makes property undevelopable, no economic use, that's a taking. And they can ask for compensation, and they would probably be entitled to it. So we have this kind of backdoor out. If our regulation causes them to not be able to develop, we need to work with them so that some reasonable development can be happening. And that's an exception. And we'll send them to the variance.
And so the group wanted an exception for this.
And so I would propose that perhaps the exception stops here. It doesn't go to the BOT. Right? Variances go to their BOT for final decision. We could set it up so that you have the final say on these exceptions. Very small criteria, requirements for them to prove, and give them the yes to go ahead and develop at some level. They may not be able to put a monster house on the property, but they can do something, right? And that's okay under the law. We don't have to give them the right to build a monster house. They have to build a house, right? And part of the problems I'm having when I go through the new state regulations on wetlands, they allow a lot of things that we probably won't. For example, we can put footers in the wetlands to extend the house above. And we cantilever, and they allow that. So we don't want to defer the state. We're going to have our own local regulations that are going to be more stringent.
What about when development has to occur in the wetlands, like a driveway access?
That's part of this mitigation.
And then I think under our current rules, the driveways are not allowed to do.
We don't allow that. If we have to give an exception in which they invade because they can't develop without entering the wetlands, there will be some mitigation that has to happen.
So that would still fall under the exception process.
Following the exception process. But if somebody comes in with a completely developed lot and they've got a piece of the lot as wetlands, they can still build a house on property, and they want to put a driveway in wetlands. The answer is no. They don't have to. They can't do that. And there's no exception for that. The exception is
I feel like I've seen one where they have wetlands and they had to build a driveway. It was like a sliver of wetlands. They built the driveway over it. we're just making sure we capture something like that.
And that's kind of the second part of it. Gordon's absolutely right about how to process this. There's a point at which we get the delineation done. And then we look at the site. How do we have, that's the next step, which is perhaps even more complicated than delineation. How we're going to set up regulations that are easily administered by us so that we don't have to go out there and stand up there during the entire construction. We need to be able to define for them what they can and can't do, and then run build.
I think I've got my thoughts better at this point. I can send you bullets from what we just
I
discussed.
think the two of us can probably work on something to get it close.
Well, I think the big point right now is that we have a lack of language. We need to establish some sort of language, some sort of protection. We can fine tune it later. You know, when we want to get an accurate delineation of the entire town, we can do that later. You know, like right now, like let's get the language in so that we have the mechanism to protect it. I can take one of those maps and shade a bunch of the lots that are like, oh, hey, that's next to the Blue River. That's in the like, let's start with that. Like, you know, something within a 1,000 feet or whatever. We'd start with something very basic to like, all right, these are the lots that are going to trigger.
Well, this is where I was really is what's going to trigger. You know, somebody comes in with a plan, and somebody thinks, I think there's wetlands there. How are we going to force them to get that right now? And under the current stuff, it doesn't say how to do that, or that, and at least as I read it, and I don't know what triggers it now, other than the person's goodwill and good faith that they did their due diligence and your guys' knowledge that you know this town so well.
Well, an engineer, if they're looking at it, you know, I would think they'd send off some kind of a trigger saying, hey, you know, the footings are going to have to be different. We're going to have to do something different here because there's wetlands. I don't think they're going to sign off on something that's in the wetlands.
Well, and I guess in my professional life, I've seen some wonderful folks, and I've seen some folks that cause this. And, you know, I don't know what this person's, you know, morals, ethics are, competency is. And so, you know, I want to be able to be the check and balance.
Or is the trigger always happen? If they're building,
that seems
if they're building, can we just right away the trigger goes on that says you have to have an environmental engineer take a quick glance at it, and they're going to say yay or nay. Whether it's, you know, there's nothing there being built now where there's no water nearby, and then right away I don't know what they're going to charge, but that's just part of the cost of doing business. That no, you're good.
Currently,
Or
doing new construction, you're gonna see a engineering report from.
Yeah, there's almost always a soils investigation report.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's just for the footprint of the home usually. But wetland usually just comes up when I do the review for you guys. Because it's an object on the land use code that I need to look at. And I evaluate the parcel based on how close it is to rivers, where I know it's at. And if they're missing that completely, then I flag it as a question.
So are you following like to me, you want to have criteria here for legal support. It should, you know, there should be a stepwise process. If you're the guy that's doing that, I would want it, you know, and doing the same process with each lot.
I think that's where you're getting hung up, Gordon, is that you're wanting some sort of like hard definition of what's going to trigger
process. And this is where I want a process for initiating the evaluation. And that's not solely on definitions, on criteria, like there's a stream, like there's you know, again, it's based on different criteria. Initiate the process.
Right now, it's just me asking the applicant, is there wetlands? They say yes. I say I need to.
And if they say no, then, you know, then you're kind of taking a look, see. To me, there should be a process.
I couldn't agree more. Okay? I could not agree more. And if you go back and listen to the presentations of the land use code back in 23, I told the board expressly the wetland sections and other environmental sections are in need of serious attention. And right now, a paragraph or two. They need to be pages. I told the board that because that was one area, because this had to be done really quickly. the land use code. I thought we got pretty close for a quick first cut, but we left some things out. Wetlands is one we left out. This has to be addressed. And it's bigger. You're absolutely
Well,
right.
this is what's I'm struggling with is I understand the desire to be expedient. I don't know that that's wise to do here. It's just too complicated and there's too much liability. There's liability huge for the town.
See, I don't think,
Maybe I'm.
I don't think it's that tough. You know, I know when we do, submit a permit, we have to, you know, the homeowner has to pay for, the engineer to design the electrical and heating and HAV, all the heating and ventilating systems.
Support for the
There's
foundation.
a soils report, so what's another $500 for the guy to say, hey, is there wetlands on this property or is there not? I think it's just part of the cost of doing business. If we're serious, I think you put too many processes in and it just, it makes it even more confusing. It's one of the many steps to get to,
But there's
to the
got to be
building
legal
department.
defensibility if you're going to require somebody to take on this cost. And I don't know if you can just do it
Yeah,
across
so
the board.
that's like, we need to put the language in.
Listen, exactly what you're saying. He's absolutely right. What this first section of the new code would say is that the town has established an area of concern. The criteria determining what the area of concern is as follows. And we put in the criteria, the aid of a wetlands expert. And that way we are defensible because we threw a survey or a line around an area based upon logic and some evidence. That's exactly what the board is saying. Is that we need to have that as the first step. And then that's when we say, go get a delineation because you're within the area of concern. It doesn't mean that if somebody else stands up at the podium one night and says, hey, I'm going to develop and I'm not in the area of concern, but you figure out that they might be, we'll have the authority to send them out there and do it, okay? Based upon evidence that's presented during the meeting. It's a smooth process. It meshes up really well with what Gordon's talking about. It just has to be, as he says, framed out with defensibility. And that's where I get involved with him to make sure that we got stuff.
I think it sounds like we're talking about, you know, there's so many different, I think we need to construct the language. I don't think it's as complicated as Gordon as you're maybe making it.
I can complicate things without a doubt. And I think I have some criteria here that I can give to Bob and then and get something on paper to look at it and then we go from there to, you know.
We want it to be defensible, but I also think like keeping it, you know,
simple and
it's simple and as vague as legally possible so that it's still defensible, but that it allows us that ability to be like, hey, you know what? We think that you say there's no wetlands there, but we think there is wetlands there. That we just need to like cast a bigger net right now than smaller. You know, we don't need to drill down too finite and try to really like I said, go out and survey every single lot. We're not there yet. Let's get something, get the language that Bob's going to be comfortable with, and get it through the board of trustees that we can get something on the books before it's like we're 6 months down the road and we still don't have anything because we're trying to decide of like, well, what's the definition of a stream or a creek or a river or like water, a spring coming out of the rock, and is that wetlands? And like, we're, you know, like we need to just like.
No, and again, I got past that. Army Corps engineer's definition is what triggers the evaluation is where this vagaries are of the water coming out of the hill or, you know, a flower over there that only grows in wetland, but it's bone dry, you know. So, yeah.
And part of the problem that we'll work with is the fact that the wetlands definitions, those Army Corps debate, are things that can change over time due to climate conditions and lack of water in a year. We may have 3 drought years in a row and the wetlands shrink. And so people would theoretically be able to build in an area that may be wet in the future. That's one of the challenges.
Well, and it's like you've always said, it's a living document. So if we need to move it or change it or adjust it accordingly, we have that flexibility.
And that's the whole thing. But we need to start with something.
Yeah.
And then we can refine in the future. But not having anything is our problem right now. So.
And I wish there were this idea of local regulatory control over wetlands is something the big people, the big dogs, the big cities and counties do. Small towns like this don't get involved in that, but they're starting to because of the changing the law. So.
And I would think the county and, would welcome what we're doing with being at the headwaters here.
It's definitely in the water.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I think that they should pay for the, so they, you know, they're benefiting from it, but.
Don't mention that in front of the board.
Oh,
I mean, Breckenridge owns the water rights to the Tarn, so they're first in line, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
We got what we need.
I think so.
I don't know if wetlands will change at all, but there's also intent somewhere way down the line of doing some flood mitigation work up Indiana Creek and Pennsylvania Creek, which may change the hydrological flow somewhat.
The total, just while we're talking about
So-
wet things, and you mentioned Pennsylvania, so I don't know who would be to bring this up, but you ever gone up I believe it's now, Thiebel's now sold it to the town of Breck, but the base of Pennsylvania Creek Trailhead, and there's the social trail that goes up, and there's a cistern up there, right? A cistern that feeds like 3 or more houses up there. I'm pretty sure they have a leak in their supply line.
It's a wet.
It bubbles out of the trail. So if you drive up to the Pennsylvania Creek and start hiking up the social trail, it is a constant year-round water flow. There is electrical cable that has been exposed, probably that goes to a pump of some sort, and there's a little control box or a locked pipe at the bottom that might have a valve. You can see the cistern if you go up that trail. The cistern is just off to the right. But it is an ice slick in the winter because it runs nonstop. And I'm pretty sure it's the supply line for one or more of the homes.
I would not be
Cistern
surprised.
That has been seriously leaking for at least 2-3 years now. It's getting worse.
There's a few oddball water systems going on in that area
Yeah.
with the neighborhood.
But it is, I know, right at the top of Cornet. I know there's at least 3 of the older homes that are on that cistern. I don't know how that would be enforced or if there is any mechanism to enforce it, but that probably should be remedied because it's actually becoming a hazard for our town street. The parking at the trailhead there, it is an ice rink. Super sketchy.
And I would just,
I've been meaning who should I bring this up to? Something I've been thinking about for.
and that's a health, safety, and welfare issue as opposed to wetlands issue.
Oh yeah. It just happens to be wet, so it's.
Artificial release, or the mandated release of water due to leaking cistern is not the kind of natural area that wetlands protection is supposed to address. We're talking about area that wildlife come and bugs come and stuff like that. That's just a mistake that needs to be removed.
That's a little fun, multi-jurisdictional.
Yeah, so it's because it was people. Well, the cistern I believe is on private property, and it's probably on lot number.
There's 2 houses that are considered its native subdivision. The two outer lots are their own subdivision.
It would be this Creekside, Cornet. So this lot, the very top, I believe the cistern is on their lot.
Okay.
And I believe it feeds the next couple below. Definitely, I think it's this much for sure. On that cistern. From that turnaround point. It's running across the driveway.
And
It flows down that social trail. In the wintertime, it is it becomes 12-inch thick salt ice.
There's a Theobald made a different water system that was intended to initially serve 15 homes. It only now serves 2 on that street. So yeah, I know there's other non-conventionals.
Yeah. So this is the property that is now town.
Did you ask
Uh,
Kyle about
it's-
the decking?
Which must be.
You asked Kyle about the
Pretty sure
decking?
the sister.
I'll ask Kyle.
Yeah, you'll ask me.
It's close.
Are we on the class?
So it's right off the property, right off the trail, but then it converges on the
Has to
trail to
be-
grade. Okay.
Well, I think the.
What's it?
Not
height
wood.
and
So it
height
doesn't
of
necessarily have to
exposed
be
electrical
class
wire
A.
that is.
But it can be like composite.
It is on the trail.
Composite.
So Trent said a class B composite.
So it can be class B too.
Yeah.
Composite.
Yes,
But
not full stringent class. A.
Right. What's
Yeah. Any-
That's decking now, okay.
any
Decking
product
now
that
has to be
requires-
composite?
Well,
Sorry, sidetrack us off. our-
anything else related to wetlands that we want to discuss today? We still got garages and large sheds, so we just want to make sure we at least give a few minutes of consideration to each of those items if they need.
So sheds next.
Yeah.
What's
Are
on?
we wrapped on what are we
Yeah.
made consensus on wetlands? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
See what, I'm just getting closer to the door.
Don't leave yet.
Can I sit next to you?
I'm gonna get handcuffed to the chair.
So you wanna do shed? You wanna do sheds next?
Sure.
You have in your packet, and I hope you had a chance to review it.
Yep.
Revisions to the ordinance test, the ordinance of concern that went to a program of having small sheds and large sheds. And as you directed last time we talked about this, we reverted back to the old system, which is there's only one kind of shed. It's not small or large, it's a shed. And it can be no larger than 200 square feet. You can have two of them on your property, not three. And it's the changes in here. So basically it goes back to what we used to do. It does have some extra stuff in it that was wrapped in. We have some provisions that make it more enforceable, so it makes it lawful to have a shed that doesn't conform with the section, so we can actually prosecute somebody who has a shed that's not conforming. But the key changes to this is killing that 400 square foot shed opportunity, large shed opportunity. Just going back to two smalls is all you get. That's it. That's really the essence of the changes.
I think that's what we all agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's all it needs to do.
So based on that, you agree, I'm gonna propose that we put, Chad and I put this in final form, get it to you at the next meeting, you give the blessing, and we'll get it in front of the board the following meeting. I don't think there's gonna be any issues with approving that same night.
Okay.
We'll check that off the list, okay?
Garages.
Yeah. So garages, in our old land use code, we had two sections. One was kind of dealing with the design. The other part was basically how you use a garage. I took the first section out. If you look at what I handed out, red lines, I took the first section out that dealt with kind of design and moved it into the other section. So we have one section that deals with garages. Easier for people to kind of look at what the requirements are. Some of the key changes in this is that the new provision that says you cannot put a habitable space above a garage. This is an issue that we have not let people do because we don't allow dwelling units on property. But that's why we said no. This gives us the extra thing to say you can't have it because the code says garages can't have it. Not that it's a dwelling unit prohibition. It's garages just simply aren't going to be built that way after this is in place. So I think it's a little more enforceable than saying, let's talk about whether it's a dwelling. I changed the provision that we talked about in the last meeting about garages were encouraged to be designed. It's like had some flexible language in it. But as you instructed, now a garage, whether it's attached or detached, shall be designed to visibly appear consistent with the principal permitted building on the same lot in terms of architectural style, roof style, building materials, and color. It doesn't mean they have to match exactly. Like, I'm sorry, that's a certain kind of siding and you didn't use it on the garage. If they look consistent, you're going to say, oh, it's okay. That's really what we're after, but they have to do it in a manner that you look at the garage and say, that looks like the main house. It's not an entirely different design, roof pitch, color. It's not, you're going to say no to that because we want garages to mesh with the principal use. That's usually how they're designed anyway, but you always have the one-off person who comes in with a plan that's basically a structure that doesn't even look remotely close to the original building because it was cheap and easy to build. So that's in the old stuff with regard to the doors have to be wooden or material and color that matches the adjacent surfaces, we kept that. The old section moved over here. That's still in there. You know, we used to say simple designs are encouraged. Keep that in there. Clad material such as anodized metal, baked enamel, or plastics are subject to review. P&Z. It's all stuff that we used to have. White doors are prohibited. We used to have that in the regulations. It's still kept in this regulation. Okay. Getting more to the point of what we talked about, the new provisions have been modified so that if you have a detached or attached garage, it has to be designed so that the garage doesn't appear from the vantage point of the front of the residence to predominant as the predominant structure of the lot. So it's whether it's attached or detached, it's not going to be dwarfing, visibly the main house. And the predominant, you've always I think a person struggle with predominant, but the definition is perfect. Predominant means having the most importance, influence, or force, and more noticeable or important. So if the garage is more noticeable or important than the residence, you're going to say no to it. Okay. Ways they can deal with that is push it back. Okay, so it's not the predominant structure that you see from the street, whether it's attached or detached. Garages that are attached and directly accessible from the primary dwelling unit. You know what that means, right? I go down, I go into the garage from the kitchen, or I go into a little corridor that's heated and air conditioned into the garage. If it's attached like that, and the interior space may extend beyond and in front of the dwelling unit block. We struggled with this a little bit about pushing the garage out is kind of we didn't want to see that. But when they're attached to the building, this is very common in construction. You see the garage is sometimes set forward from the house. Mm-hmm. Okay, and if it's attached, the answer is it's okay, and it's architecturally compatible. We're going to say that's okay because the old regulations kind of led us to believe that you can't put the garage in front of the house in any way, even if it's attached. We've modified that to say it's okay. Garages that are fully detached from the primary dwelling unit. So it's not one of those attached ones where you walk from the kitchen. And are located in front, and when they're located in front of the primary dwelling unit on the lot, they shall be side loaded. Let me explain how that works. With windows or other architectural treatment visible from the vantage point of the front of the residence to make the garage appear to be habitable residential space. That's extremely common. Okay. And I have some pictures if you want to see it. The very top picture is what I'm talking about here. It's side loaded. So when you look at the house, you see the windows on the garage, but you come to the side of the garage to enter it. That's an okay architectural design style that we didn't allow before. So we want them to make it side loaded.
Yeah, there's a big side attached, but then this is a side load, so we're driving up down the road.
And then it goes on to give you some discretion. Here's what it says. Upon a determination by the P&Z that the size, shape, or character of the lot, you're looking at the lot, and you look at the size, character, or shape of the lot, or the location of an existing primary dwelling unit on the lot, will not reasonably permit a garage to be located and designed in accordance with this subset. So they can't side load it, okay? Because of the way the lot's configured, where the house is located, they can't comply with this. It's okay for you're authorized to approve a garage that fails to comply with this requirement being side loaded. If the commission determines that the proposed garage as located and designed will substantially comply with the regulations. So you look at things and say they can't side load it, and there's no other place to put the garage except in the front and attached. So they don't have to side load it if you think that they've done a good enough job to substantially comply with what they want to see. Okay, so maybe they put some architectural treatment on it to make it look a little bit like habitable space. You get the discretion to decide.
I think that's kind of an example on your last page there.
Yes, what the pictures there.
Yeah. Well, that it's like when we're discussing wetlands and like giving us the discretion instead of it having to go through a, variance request, simplify it so that it's not a whole nother process. Like, we see that they're trying their best to like work within the confines of the requirements, and we deem it to be, good enough. The lot's tricky and it looks good. We can approve it without being like, well, the letter of the rule doesn't allow us to do that. I mean, I think that's good having, for garages, having language in there to give the commission some leeway.
What is substantially compliant?
That's a discretionary determination by you that you think they made a good effort to get close, substantially close.
I mean, so like predominant to me, in my head, that's 50% or more predominant.
Well,
I don't know if that's
it's not defined by percentage. Predominant isn't.
No.
It's a definition that depends upon your discretion and how you view the unit. Is it placed in a place that's more important than percentage? Gives you a great deal of discretion, and it's not uncommon at all to have P&Z have discretion. DOT has it all the time.
And substantial substantial doesn't mean that's the majority of the elements. Just, that they made an attempt as best they could.
Mhm.
That
Reasonable.
Reasonable in light of the shape and size and where the house is. You look at it and think, that's a pretty good job of coming close.
Right.
Okay? They had to do front loading because they can't side load. If somebody comes in and parks a garage at the front of the house, and you see that it can easily be side loaded, but they put in the loading on the front, you have the ability to say no.
I guess I'm stuck on the word substantial. To me, substantial means the majority or most of, or the most important piece of it. And so now I'm deciding whether the structure being in this way is more important than another criteria in here. And I guess if we're allowed to have that discretion.
Absolutely are. Absolutely are. And the substantial means that, in your view, that they largely met the intent of the regulation. What's the intent of the regulation? The intent is to make garages blend into the house, blend into the lot, not be the predominant thing on the property. And so if you look and say they did the best they can to make that happen here, because of the shape of the lot, they had to put the garage where they did, it had to be front loaded. You can say you got close enough in our opinion. You have that discretion.
And I guess they could argue that if we said no, they could go to the trustees and say, well, we think it's substantial and this is why, and your P&Z was wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you have discretion. I don't want us to walk away thinking that you're so bound to the regulations that somehow you have to make them black and white. It's not the way regulations are written. Regulations are written to give people who are, like you, appointed to make a decision, some flexibility and discretion to say whether or not they got close. Very common, extremely common in regulation. Okay? Don't shy away from making your decision on the call. The garage size stuff that we had before that we talked ad nauseum tonight about, based upon they can't have more than a certain size garage. If you have 5,000 square feet or less in the house, they have more, they need a little bit more space. But I have in here that in the issue when they have 5,000 square feet of habitable size, the house is a bigger house, 5,000 or more. That's going to be a pretty bigger house, right? They can have 25% of the total principal permitted structure habitable size. That's the regulation that you brought up tonight. 25% for this big house. That's all they get. I had to add in there that in no event shall the maximum size of a garage on a lot exceed a certain square feet. Is there an absolute maximum of a garage that you would say is too much?
I think we just went through that.
You did, because if the house is 10,000 square feet, the garage can be 25% of 10,000. That's a pretty big garage, okay? You want to say there's a ceiling, there's a limit. If you have a 12,000 square foot house, you have a garage, but it can't be above a certain level. Think about it. That's something I want you to noodle on.
On the telephone, because that really looked good on that house.
Well, maybe you don't want to have it. Maybe you want to say, this is 12,000 square foot house. It's okay to have 25%. You say that. That's how it's drafted.
Well, and the trick with the, the proposal that was in front of us is, and I totally get they're arguing this gallery, and I know it's going to look good, and it really is going to be this gallery space, but it's tire storage. There's an automotive lift. It's a man cave, which is great, but a lot of places those are in commercial areas because it's still a garage. And then where, I would love to hey, let's, I want a gallery too, attached to my garage and just, add another 2 parking spaces. It's for my, I don't drive the cars often. They're there. And where do you draw the line?
So on his original, the other house that he owns at the corner of Argentine and did he just go, did we okay that?
I don't remember that one.
I don't remember.
I sure don't. That was before your time.
Yeah, and Thomas Marshall did the plan review on that one, so I don't know.
Because there is a repair garage. And
I sure don't
an apartment
remember
for
the-
No.
mechanics
the huge
to come
garage.
stay there and work on the cars.
Yeah.
I mean, it's elaborate.
And when was that house built?
Just finished 6 months ago.
It was long. It's been final
It's
at
like
least
a year
at least a year, but it had been going on for probably.
Yeah, I don't-
But it seemed like things,
Was that
we okayed that breezeway and a bunch of stuff, but then it seemed to kind of,
Was that new construction or was that an addition?
It was an addition.
well,
Yeah.
but part of it,
in
addition-
doubled the size of the house.
it was in addition to their carriage house, right?
There was a carriage house there, but it got gutted to turn into the car museum, and
But it expanded too.
it got bigger and turned into the man's building.
Right.
Because it is full of
It's a house, not a house.
bars, video games,
What is that?
apartments, pool tables, bars, you name it.
Oh, I
It's all
like.
I think one of the differences in that space are it is broken up. It's not a
Well, I mean, is it kind of broken up like?
It's broken up, but I mean,
it's not a 3,000 square foot rectangle.
On the outside, that's what. it
on
looks
the
like.
outside it is, but
But
you know,
no, there's demising walls. It's 2 stories.
right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
very
I
long.
sure don't remember.
But
The
as far as
repair
what they're
garage.
Do you,
proposing
Bob?
tonight is it's a 3,000 square foot rectangle.
I don't know. We used to not pay attention to these.
It's huge. So I think that it's a little
We were so
Yeah, well, sure,
wishy-washy.
you pull in and then the elevator brings the McLaren up to the
And it
Yeah, I don't. I would remember that, and I don't remember that.
So the lifts bring the cars up so that when you're on the second floor mezzanine, you can look across at the car,
Right.
while you're
Yeah. I would have.
drinking the
I would
bar.
have. That one would have really hit me
But I
like.
mean, a lot of this too is
Yes.
because it was an addition, what they're doing inside of the existing
Right.
structure
Isn't on planning and zoning.
it's not it's got it's
That's
But
that's
the part you're talking about where it raises it up, is that on the left-hand side as you're looking at the buildings where the old carriage house
that
was?
would be on the looker's left.
Yeah, lookers left.
Where they have, 2-story garage doors in order to, drive cars in. And then, I think it started off as this is going to be for RV storage. And then it turned into this car museum. And yes, there were 8
So
or
I
9
guess they
cars
could-
on lifts.
Yeah, Thomas
could-
Marshall actually reviewed it under the building code. He called it a repair shop. So it went really wacky. But
Yeah,
I'm trying
I
to
mean-
see.
Because things, it didn't come across that way. Well, actually, it was a remodel, so we didn't see a lot.
Yeah.
that's
so
a lot of that stuff. probably
We
just
approved the exterior.
Right. And then this inside
We have no clue.
morph.
I think I
More.
found out about cars from you.
But I mean, maybe they can keep the same, on the new one, they could cut it down. They could make it deeper in the ground and stack cars,
These cars are stacked.
Oh, they're stacked. Okay.
Yeah, there's multiple stacks.
Is there enough room in the new edition where they could stack them or?
But then that defeats all purpose of looking at
They'll
all
spread
your
them out.
cars.
Yeah. And the stacking could actually help them meet the 25%
Right.
because it's the floor area that
Exactly.
first area, the back, put them on top of each
Yeah,
other.
so then you could just have
If you get
these
a
like
Carvana.
rotating,
Rotisserie.
continuous.
And that would be one way to be.
What's the one that they sell those cars?
Carvana.
Carvana.
I was gonna say you could build a silo on your property.
Yeah,
and
it's
just round
just
in a
like-
circle and hide it.
The inside of this room, when you walk in and see the cars, it's still the kind of room that you would be expected to take your shoes off. You know, it's
Right.
not
Right.
grit
not
and
a-
gravel. It's a nice finished floor, and you know the finishes are, you know, there's granite and brass and
But like, it's not to say, like, what they proposed tonight, you could bumper to bumper. pack
you could stack
50 cars.
Right.
That's a garage
Yeah,
with
right.
50 cars.
That's a
You can
garage.
start space.
Well, it's like Bob said, and somebody comes in and I'm putting an ad down in Front Range, bring your cars up, you
Yeah,
can start in my garage. It's a garage.
Yeah,
It was,
climate controlled classic
Yeah.
cars.
And there are many of them.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. No, one of my clients up here, I asked him, where do you put your car? Oh, I rented the lot down in Denver.
Yeah.
Cause when they said, the owner isn't gonna be happy because his current garage holds more than, and it's just like, we're.
Well, then
We
he can
wouldn't have
go,
let
he
that-
can go over there
right.
to his other house.
So,
So just say that one evaded review because of the nature of the application.
Due to being a
Yeah.
remodel.
It was approved in December of 21,
Yeah.
what part of it was approved, or what was,
the whole addition.
oh, the addition?
But then if you're looking only at the addition and they're also then gutting existing house space.
It was
to create
remodeling.
I
garage
don't see
space,
any of that.
it doesn't come before review.
And all the garages look there's left,
They
right? The
charge
right
for-
is just a residence.
Correct.
Yeah.
The right is just residence, and they did minimal remodeling. They
Oh,
fixed
so
the
it was
patio,
mostly for the cars.
almost the
And landscape.
elevated breezeway, and then you know there's garages on the garages. There's a garage for the Bobcat that's attached to the garage, and
Cause you see doors, you know, I go down Mount Argentine
right there's doors everywhere.
everywhere.
But I think you all are better attuned to catch that in the future. When you see somebody come in with a remodel, you know, addition, to ask the question, you see garage aspects.
Or what about, well,
Well,
the 9, or well,
yeah,
if
what
that's,
about, we're not allowed to ask about the 9-bedroom down there on the highway. We're not supposed to be talking about how many bedrooms that guy's putting in there. Cause we're at planning, we're only looking at what he's presenting to us was the front deck and the back deck. But in the meantime, throughout town, the word is he's turning that into a 9-bedroom house. Is that true? Are we allowed to ask that question?
My short answer is you can always ask a question.
Do they have-
I'm asking that question right now.
Next
Well,
question after you ask that is there anything you can do about it?
That's the
What
real
is the
question.
objection about it?
Is there anything we can, because more for me, okay, he's tapped into sewer, it's not affecting the septic anymore. What about his water rights?
Well-
You know,
But if you think
Well,
somebody's
then- then
constructing
that
not
goes
the
back to-
code and it's a public health, public safety risk,
Like
and you
the well-
demand to have access to look at it.
Yes, if you have probable cause to believe they're not in compliance with the code, absolutely.
did you guys have
You
the,
have probable cause. You've
So
heard
on
from
this
10
one, we
people
have
and-
3 separate permits. We have one for the egress windows, one for the interior
oh, you got
illumination,
one,
and one for the exterior. So today, we only brought the permit that
Right.
needs the planning and zoning review.
right,
So internally, we have a permit for the bedroom. So me and Chad can work through whatever issues you may have there.
what was the,
so what's the true
Purpose of the
answer?
egress
Is he
window.
making that
He's
in?
adding 1 or 2. Definitely not no.
It was 5, I believe. It's now
Oh.
8 or 9.
Or is that many?
It's what,
what spurred on did the bedrooms spur on the egress areas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for our definition, to meet a bedroom, you have to have egress windows.
Egress.
and he's added 3 wells. He
It's
did,
either 2 or 3,
There's 2.
I'm not sure.
3 from the
there's
front.
2 on one side and 1 on the other.
Okay.
So, and I've been in that house. That's how I know that downstairs had no egress windows. It was a grow house. I mean, it really was. I told the realtor, you might want to get the grow lights out of there and it might help the sale. But, and that wasn't what,
police activity there, definitely helped the resale value.
Yeah, but, so I'm just curious, and then, to me, with a well, like now you can take and double the occupancy, cause it probably was a 4 or 5 bedroom house already. I would
Well,
say,
if I know the water rights correctly, it's just per dwelling unit. It doesn't matter about bedroom count. The septics care about bedroom count, not water.
huh,
Yeah, the only thing with the well would be outdoor irrigation. Whether or not it's permitted for outdoor irrigation, which would include a hot tub or even an outdoor water spigot.
right, no, I know that,
And one of the logistical hurdles to things such as a hot tub is that they need to show water rights, but there doesn't need to be any proof of continuing use of, not water rights, excuse me. If they either water rights or they're shipping in water, we
right,
don't have the ability to track, are you consistently actually shipping in water?
right. And most of those, the property management companies sign on with Coppice or one of those, and that's part of their service. They bring in water.
In theory.
Guys are topping off their things, but not like the old days where you saw a river quarterly, you saw a river running down there, emptying their hot tub and their refilling it.
I would say that there seems to be an incongruency between the number of units of vehicles bringing water into town versus the usage versus the number of permits.
I think that's well, and then like that one, they're gonna do, or is it that one? I know on Gold Nugget, she's putting 2 hot tubs in the backyard. And she said, "Oh, well, will it help if I eliminate one?" I go, "It doesn't really matter as long as you're not using your tap water to do it. It doesn't matter if you have 2." And that's the one she's turned into a 7-bedroom house. And and so, you can have a swimming pool as long as you're not filling it off your tap.
Are they expanding these homes to 9 and 7 for short-term rental?
Yes.
Yes.
Which right now is a huge risk if you're spending that kind of money to blow up in your house.
Well, that's why they've
Because-
been here.
The board is probably gonna come down the total number of occupancy,
Right.
period. Doesn't matter how many bedrooms, you
Right.
can't have more than 5, I'm making the number up, 5 people. And
Right.
these folks who are spending the money to think in the thought process, they might be able to have a monstrous short-term rental in the future, are taking monster risk because they have no legal right to a short-term rental of that size if the board decides not.
Well, and that's where I think things are changing. Where at one time the word was come to Blue River, do whatever. It's the Wild West out there, and finally it's being addressed. Maybe not a cap, but occupancy.
No problem. When I lived here, I had an outdoor spigot, I didn't put it in, and I had a hot tub. But I didn't have water rights that allowed me to fill the hot tub
Right.
and do the outdoor spigot. So I augmented the water rights. I don't know how much it cost, but it wasn't that much.
Supposedly, I heard someone tried to do that and they wouldn't let them do it anymore. And it used to be, it wasn't that much. Back in the day, it was like $1,200 or $1,600, and you could irrigate like 2,000 square feet
Yes.
of exterior,
That's exactly right.
and that was it. And then one of my neighbors tried to purchase it, and they said, "We're not doing that." So I don't know if
Okay,
that's,
so the last person that entered that did it was Lindsay, our old mayor,
yeah,
and I think she paid somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000.
right.
But that was a number of years ago.
And that was the same thing. You could augment it for hot tub as well. And my house, I found out from Huntley, what's his name? The county attorney, Jeff. Jeff told me at a party one time, he goes, "When was your house built?" My house originally was 1967. He goes, "Get your water rights, 71 and prior, you're exempt." But I had to get the water commissioner to come out, inspect my well, and then document it, and then told me you can water 2,000 square feet. Well, I'll run out of water if I do that. So I can't, but I could. If I had storage, I could, but I don't. I water some wildflowers and a few baskets, and that's it, but on paper, I can water 2,000 square feet outside, and yeah, but it's Bidler still, right?
It was 14, 15 years ago.
Predominantly.
Is that who it is?
It's still
That's the terminology I hear
That-
frequently.
Yeah.
So they don't have the water, they can't save the rights.
Are we good on garages then at this point?
Sorry.
You're good with that?
Another thing that's going to you.
Huh?
That's the house that's set. 11 using 19.
It's it's on Stewart.
Yeah. Thank you for being
Sorry for so long because my apologies, it took a long time to get stuff scored up because other things got in front.
Yeah. It's all right. I mean, the bandwidth of the board to talk about some of these things may not be expansive at this current moment.
Right.
So
So I know there,
About sheds.
you're almost having weekly meetings with those guys.
yeah.
So,
Short-term rentals are taking.
yeah, well, appreciate that. Trying to work on that.
Thank you.
One other thing I was just thinking when we were discussing the place in Spruce Valley Ranch, as Bob brought up, the PUD is something the town adopted that the town then enforces. It would be really good to like see what the language is on the Spruce Valley Ranch PUD, because we've kind of been like, oh well, they're going to enforce it.
Well, at one time we thought that's how it was, and then I
And then
think
you break this up.
you finally said, no, that's not how, because we're always, well, if they said, at one time we said, if your neighbor said it's okay, we don't care. That
You know,
really,
so like the more stringent setbacks, like what's the language on the carriage house? Is there a maximum square footage? Is that, you know, like,
There is.
I mean, so like if we're going to, like, that needs to be.
but usually don't they go in front of them first?
Yeah, but if they're not necessarily enforcing our PUD, right? They could be like, oh, that's fine. It complies with their architectural guidelines. You know, so like we should.
Right, well, what
anything
just happened with the
before
garage?
us,
Yeah.
anything that comes before us,
There's one
will
of these things going on and
I
then
think
something slips through the cracks.
Yeah, we've already had instances this year of, I think, of parallel tracking where they don't really check in with the HOA and the town kind of starts to look at it, but it's not really the town's obligation to inform the HOA and make sure their HOA is following their guidelines, but
Right,
there's no guarantee that they talked to the HOA, so you could stamp it, and then the HOA would say, hey, come on now, we have something else that to the homeowner, not the town.
so it would have to
Different.
come
The
back.
town, the town would not get thrown under the bus on this. It's the property owner for not doing their due diligence with the HOA.
Right,
but if you know beyond HOA, there's you know HOA regulations, but the PUD, like as Bob said, is a town document that we've accepted.
Yeah.
So it's you know I don't know, is it on our website in
Historically, I doubt it.
like I mean
Yeah.
but that should be something that's like it's on the website within the land use document, and then you know so then when we have something in front of us that like I want to be able to pull that up and scroll through the language of that PUD for anything in Spruce Valley Ranch if that's truly our obligation to then enforce.
And what you really want to pay attention to in a PUD like that is whether or not the town unwisely, incorporated the covenants from, and this does happen in rare circumstances. Town's PUD says covenants are part of the PUD, which then makes us have to follow the covenants. But understand this, the reason why covenants don't control us is a simple reason. Covenants are a contract between the owners of the property and each other. We are not a party to that contract. So if somebody violates the covenants, it's up to the HOA, who's usually given power, to enforce the covenants. We don't. That's why we don't have any concern about covenants. We follow our laws, we approve what our laws allow, and if they violate the covenants, they can enforce it. We don't care. But
they don't come after us, they come after each
Yeah.
other.
But that was you know what your hesitance with when we were talking about the years ago with the rivers, is that was a covenant of the
You guys.
but there was no enforcement. You know that was the trick. There it was like there was no HOA, there was no group, but you know Tom then took it upon himself to like enforce that as a homeowner within that subdivision.
And what the board did with regard to that one,
Yeah.
especially, the board in its land use code recognized the boundaries of the river use.
Yeah.
So we formally said that's a controlling area for us with development. We can do that. We didn't have to, we can do it. And so we took it on as a government regulation, even though it was private line that was drawn.
And I think, his other property that he has built, when that was going on through construction, I think that's created some stricter rules for Spruce Valley due to the stuff, all the people on the road and,
That's still going on.
Yeah,
It's like a 3-year landscape project, and they were up there doing mulch and.
right.
Yeah, I'm still not sure what's going on. Every time I bike up the road, I'm like, why is there still landscapers here?
We have a drone.
Well,
No, because we.
Make a motion?
Oh,
you played the beat, you're
We don't say the police, all the police department's here, or else they're gonna have.
Motion to adjourn.
all in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for all this. Thanks, Louis. Thanks for all this. Wasn't it? See you soon.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. I'll go with my computer, so maybe that's a new day.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. Good thing.
Like that auto on 40.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for sitting through a fairly tedious, long-standing meeting.
Did I slow your?
Yes.
1 minute?
Yes.
This is just, and it'd be interesting for him to hear my comment, Bob. So, anyways, a couple of years ago,
That one's, well, that's how I was. Well, either way, I'll just make sure I always forget about that, because